Welcome everybody to the football experience. Caleb and I are back. We never kick things off in the way that I'm about to, but make sure you like, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below in case there's anything you agree with or disagree with. I'll try and make sure that I start off like that. Yeah,
like if we get anything wrong or miss anything, like in terms of when we're talking about like old type stuff, just let us know.
Yeah, let us know. And as you can see on Caleb's picture, he's got a little bit of a new setup going.
Hey, new mic. Hope you guys can hear me. I think I just pulled it off the table. Look at it wobble now. Oh no! I'm trying to show the people my new mic, and I've broken it.
1 minute in, and we're already having technical difficulties. Look, from my end, and since I'm recording it, the sound is fine. If anyone comments saying maybe it's too quiet or too loud, then let us know, and we'll get things adjusted. Yeah, but Caleb,
I'm fidgeting.
Ooh,
Go on, ask the question. I can still hear you.
That is nice and loud that you've come through. The talking point about I guess the whole week has been regarding the Ronaldo interview. We didn't touch on it in the last pod because we said we'd wait. I know there were some clips that were released, but we said we'd wait till both hour-long interviews were released. It is with everyone's favourite Englishman, Piers Morgan. But did you get a chance to watch it all? Did you see any clips? See if you get your thoughts. I watched both interviews in full. So if you have anything to say, and then I'll kick it off.
Yeah, I'm interested to get your take on it because I didn't watch it, and I guess my take on it is the reason why I didn't watch it, because I find Cristiano Ronaldo's club career at this point of his career to be quite irrelevant, to be quite honest. Man United, the thing is, and the way I find it so irrelevant is because Man United have somewhat found at least some form to be respectable in what they're doing in the project and how they're going forward. And Cristiano Ronaldo has not been a part of that at all this season. In fact, he's as he's proving with interviews in an interview like this, he's proving to be an impediment to their progress. So if he had a leg to stand on, if he was coming out after scoring, 8 goals to the start of the season and playing quite well, then this would be a bombshell. But the fact that he's a guy who's just bang out of form, not playing very well at all, and you can understand why he's not getting game time. He just doesn't have a leg to stand on. So he's coming into this interview and this bombshell, even though it's not really a bombshell, he's just saying things that from what I gather, he's just saying things that we already knew. But yeah, he's coming into it from a position of weakness, and that makes me already just deterred from it. It's like, well, that just sounds like sour grapes to me. Why don't you just put your head down and play better and show why you deserve to be in the team if you feel like this? But he hasn't been able to do it, and that's not to say he will be irrelevant for the next month, because he has 1 month at the very end of his at least country international career, you'd think, to perhaps achieve his greatest achievement yet, which is really saying something. So yeah, it's not to say that he will be irrelevant for this month, but the fact that he's been so irrelevant in club football so far is just, it really didn't pique my interest in terms of wanting to watch that, because it just felt like we all knew what was going on there. And yeah, the only interesting thing was when he was given the captain's armband a couple of weeks ago. That one was kind of interesting. Why has that happened? And obviously he's repaid the faith by going and doing this. So yeah, I don't know. It just didn't really pique my interest. But what I am interested to hear again is your views on it, being someone who did, I gather, watch the interview.
Well, in all honesty, there was no real bombshells said. Like I told when we were discussing it briefly before we kicked things off, I said that pretty much everything that he said regarding the club was everything that like Gary Neville and Roy Keane and other ex-United players have been saying about the club, like about the owners and such, and how badly it's run and how the facilities aren't updated or aren't state of the art anymore. Like we pretty much already knew that from what other pundits have said. One thing that I will just sort of point out is he and like what a lot of people are misinterpreting. Like Ronaldo said something about the chefs, like he said, oh, even the chefs are the same. But then he said like, but he loves them and they're great people. But everyone's like saying that, oh, he's had a go at the chefs, which is like completely wrong. He said he was more pointing out like they're still there, they're still stuck in time with everything it's like the club hasn't put anyone new in place that can bring in new regimes or anything like that, and like since Sir Alex left or what, but he wasn't having a go at those people, so just want to make that clear. But yeah, like he gave us a little bit of insight in regards to like just, I don't know, I guess how his relationship broke down with Ten Hag, and I guess with the people above him, because he mentioned that the reason why he missed preseason was because his daughter was in hospital, so he went and spent time with her, and that's the reason why he missed it. And like apparently management thought he was lying about that. So which, like, if that was either of us, and like, you know, we had a sick relative or whatever, and management questioned that would obviously annoy anyone, and like you would immediately lose respect for your employer. So I don't know, like there's things like you said, like in regards to that he's not performing. One reason behind that is obviously because he's not getting the consistent game time. Like for instance, if I compare that to Eddie Nketiah, like last year, he was like towards the last 5 or 6 games, I think he was scoring a goal a game pretty much. I know in some games he got 2 goals and whatnot, but he was in form because he was getting game time playing week in, week out. This season, he's been playing Europa League and then like maybe 10-15 minutes of the league games, and like he hasn't shown that same goal scoring threat just because he hasn't been playing consistently. And I guess any player would be the same. Like if they're not playing consistently, then they're not going to have that form behind them. But yeah, it looks just like it was, you know, the world's best player, or what once was the world's best player.
Yeah, it was.
What once was the world's best player. Not being, I guess, probably not being it seemed like he was aware that the club was in a bad point, but he probably didn't think it was this bad. In regards to like the club being stuck from 2013 or whatever, since when Sir Alex left, and that so much needed to be changed and updated. Go on.
Yeah, can I just cut you off? There's someone at my door, so I'll be 5 seconds. Sorry, this is live podcasting, so sorry about this, everyone.
We'll be right back in a minute. All right, we're back. Yeah, so like just continuing on, it just seems like it's a breakdown of a relationship between the manager and the player. And me and you have been, I guess any player really, even at amateur level, has been in a similar sort of boat where maybe a new manager comes in and, you know, they don't get along, they don't fit the manager's system or plans, and like maybe they believe that they deserve a spot in the team or whatnot. So you're smiling because you know what
I don't know how that feels. I don't know how that. Well, the part I don't know how it feels. I don't know how it feels to get paid like £500,000 a week
to not play.
Because if I was getting that kind, If I was getting that kind of money, I would put up and shut up with the decisions because I'm getting paid to do that. But
Well,
when you're an amateur footballer and you're not getting paid to do it, I'm more inclined to kick up a fuss.
yeah, but the thing is, I guess it shows to Ronaldo's, I guess, mentality that he still believes that he can deliver at the highest level, and he probably can. Like he's definitely in better physical shape than we are, and probably 99.9% of the world. So I guess it's testament to him that he's not happy to just sit on the bench and pick up his 500k a week. He actually wants to play, wants to score goals, wants to break records. Like he still has that hunger.
Okay, so what I'm getting from you is very pro Ronaldo vibes, and I don't want
I
to
don't
be.
know. I'm
I don't
somewhere
want
in
to
the
be.
middle.
Yeah, I don't want to. I think it's like Ronaldo leaning is a better way to say it, and I don't. I don't want to like. I don't want to go completely against that and take the pro United route, but I do want to put maybe just offer the other side in terms of. So we don't know. Oh my god, the door again. I'm so
The
sorry.
courier is back. All right.
Oh no.
Caleb, you're having a little bit of a career problem, I see.
All right. Well, you want to hear the quick lowdown? So my girlfriend got a package delivered, but we're in a gated community.
Sounds like
For some reason.
sounds like the intro to to a certain type of movie.
But yeah, we're in a gated community, and my gate remote is not working ever since they fixed the gates. And we haven't known the code for years. So I don't know how the courier got in to deliver the package, but we got the package, and then he's outside knocking on the door and go like, "Hey mate, can you let me out?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I don't know how to let you out. My gate remote doesn't not work, and I don't have the code." So after a few frantic calls back and forth between me and my girlfriend, we found out the code and I was able to let him out. But yes, that is why the pod was interrupted. So sorry to you, and sorry to all the listeners.
It's all good. But you were onto a certain point regarding Ronaldo, and I guess sort of like
Yeah,
go on.
I just wanted to play devil's advocate a bit because I know in terms of what happened in pre-season, I'm not disclaiming, obviously, that his daughter was in the hospital and that obviously as anyone who, any good father, I guess, would probably want to be there if it's serious. But at the same time, United have a duty to their club, to their supporters and to their other players to not play favourites. And it's not necessarily Ronaldo's fault that he's missed pre-season, but if he is missing pre-season, you've got to think that he'll be behind the other players in terms of where Ten Hag wants him to be going into the season. And then in the chances that he was given, and whether this is because he missed a lot of pre-season, but in the chances, and let's not forget, around that time of pre-season, there was a lot of talk even back then that Ronaldo wanted out. A lot of talk that he didn't fit Ten Hag's plans, and I think that's all come to fruition. But yeah, obviously he's a little bit behind because of missing a chunk of preseason, and that probably leads into him maybe not performing when he does get the chance. But the fact is, he hasn't performed well when he has got the chances. He doesn't look like a better alternative to Anthony Martial or Marcus Rashford or I don't know, anyone you want to put up front there. I think he just doesn't fit it, really. I'm not saying he hasn't been trying to fit it, but his characteristics at the age he is doesn't fit the system that Ten Hag wants to play. And I know that's easy to say, and I know I'm a big advocate of play to your players' strengths, but I don't think Ronaldo's at the level where you want to try to not even build a team around him, but adjust a team around him. I don't even think he's at that level, to be quite honest. So it's not really going in on Ronaldo, but I can see United's viewpoint in this whole saga and this whole scenario, and no doubt they're fuming that their player who, like I said from the start, if he was coming in here with 8 goals and good form, then United would have a bigger problem because then I'd be more inclined to take Ronaldo's side. But the fact that he's just not playing well and it's not translating onto the football pitch, like, do we really care what you're saying? If I were United and if I were a United fan, I'd want him out of the club as quickly as possible, and I'd be spitting chips that he's gone and done this when the team is at least performing to a better level.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that they didn't try to offload him in the summer transfer window, because it ends 31st of August or whatnot. Preseason was started July, and all these rumors started circulating back then, in regards to whether or not he fits into Ten Hag's plans or whatnot. So this might have also been a breakdown in communication between the manager, because the manager should have made it clear to Ronaldo and to the board and whatnot, look, I don't see him in my plans. But he was even saying publicly, he's a great player. I see him in my plans and whatnot. So could this have also been the fact that Ronaldo was misled by the manager? And I know that obviously things can change, and as games go on and whatnot. So they started off the season horribly. They got beaten by Brighton at home, and then they got beaten 4-0 by Brentford at Brentford. And then that obviously had to cause a huge shift where Maguire got dropped, and Ronaldo played both those games and started both those games, if I'm not mistaken. So he got dropped. So yeah, maybe initially the plan was to sort of have him as the focal point of the strike force. And then he quickly saw after those two performances, I need to get rid of Maguire, I need to get rid of Ronaldo, because I don't see them as part of the future of my plans. So in that respect, I can completely understand that. But yeah, like I think the transfer window is still open after those two games, so they still had time to offload him if they really wanted to get rid of him.
Yeah, and I'm completely with you. I don't understand why. And I think it goes on both parties as well, because we know Ronaldo's on astronomical wages, so there's questions, and I don't know the answers to these questions. You need to somewhat be a fly on the wall for the discussions, but there's questions as to whether United were greedy and wanted a transfer fee for him when they probably shouldn't have, and they probably should have just let him go, given his stature and the fact that he doesn't fit into the plans. And there's also questions on Ronaldo, what kind of a wage cut he was willing to take to go to a club where he can play all the time at the moment, because those aren't the big clubs anymore. He can't play at a big Champions League contending club all the time anymore. There's no way he's up to that level.
Well, apparently he turned down.
He could be an impact player, but I don't think he could be a starter on a PSG, a Bayern, I don't know, maybe an Inter, but even Inter, I don't know. So these are the clubs we're looking at, really. I know the talk was Sporting, and I think that would be a dream move, to be quite honest. I think that's the right level for him, and that is a Champions League club as well, but the wages, and I think Sporting have come out and said that they just can't afford him. They would love to have him back, but they can't.
Well, he apparently turned down 350 mil a year from Saudi Arabia. So, and like this is a guy that I'm certain, like, you know how you hear those stories of, like, you know, Kardashians getting like $100,000, $200,000 per Instagram post and whatnot. Like Ronaldo has like 500 million followers, so I'm sure he gets that sort of money just by posting himself with some sort of product. So I don't think money is an issue here. If he's turning down that those sorts of wages, it's probably him just wanting to play at the highest level. But again, why did he then choose to stay at United when it was known from last season that they weren't in the Champions League as well? So he should have said, okay, I'm going to move to a Champions League club so I can keep on extending my Champions League goal scoring record. Because I think this season, is Messi sort of closed the gap by like 3 or 4 goals. So now it's like a 10 goal difference or 15 goal difference.
Yeah, he scored a few in the Champions League.
Yeah, so yeah. And like, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned like the perfect team for him would have been Sporting. You know, go there for 2 years and retire at your boyhood club. And you know, maybe they could have got out of the groups, considering the group that they got with Tottenham. Maybe they could have got out with Ronaldo at the helm. Maybe not. Who knows? But yeah, all in all, I think after this World Cup, we're not going to see Ronaldo in a United shirt. So maybe once the World Cup is over, we can start speculating as to where he might go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but you mentioned PSG. I think if had PSG had Mbappe have moved on, that would have been a good move. Just have Messi and Ronaldo there playing for like 1 or 2 seasons. But
yeah, it's not a winning move. It's definitely a marketing move.
Yeah, definitely.
FIFA move.
Yeah, but and especially at this point in their careers, like if it was like 5 years ago when like Ronaldo was 30, and Messi was like 28 or 29, yeah, that's that would have been like juicy. Now it's like sort of like was it in 2000 or 2002 when Lakers signed
04 they had Gary Payton and Karl Malone and old guys had Shaq and Kobe who were already fighting.
So it might be like it would have been something like that possibly, but maybe not as well, because Ronaldo was like the ultimate professional. And like I know you mentioned in regards to preseason, like I'm sure it's not that preseason that you get at amateur level or even like the professional level 20, 30 years ago, where like, you know, the players are sinking beers the whole summer. Players are staying fit during the whole summer, and they come into preseason already in shape. So I
definitely the higher majority of players.
yeah, and someone like
staying in shape.
Ronaldo.
I still think there's a few out there sinking beers and,
Oh,
and
surely.
eating the wrong things, but not Ronaldo. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
Ronaldo would have come. He would have come. I don't think he needs a preseason. In all honesty, like his preseason is probably more in regards to getting to know the manager, since there was a new manager, and getting to know the system that he wants to play. So yeah, he missed out on that. But in terms of fitness, he definitely.
That's why he
need
needs
that.
a preseason. It's not for the fitness. You're 100%
Yeah.
right.
But yeah, look, we've had our say on it. All in all, the outcome is going. I think apparently United might be trying to sue him as well.
I saw that.
So we'll see what comes of that. Because like I know, like we're not going to get into the whole technicals of like him. He isn't an employee of the company. He's like contracted by the company club. So he's on a different sort of employment contract. Considering like to someone like, for instance, the chefs who are there as employees. So
Dev, defender of the chefs.
you know, I love my food. And anyone who makes good food, I will defend them to the death. But yeah, look, who knows what grounds they have to stand on, whether they're going to pursue that or not. Like, yeah, I think it's just wait and see. But look, we spent almost half an hour, albeit with a couple of breaks, a couple of interruptions. We're going to move on to the World Cup. But before we get into the World Cup, I said last week even a couple of weeks ago, I alluded to like it would be fun to like do a Yugoslavia 11. And you know what? Like when I was doing it, like off the top of my head, I was like, oh yeah, so like it's pretty much going to be Croatia plus like 1 or 2 or 3 players. And in all honesty, it pretty much is that. Maybe a couple of years ago when Kolarov and Ivanovic were absolutely flying, they would have made the team, obviously. But like I'll go through it quickly, just to get your thoughts in regards to in regards to any omissions that I have.
Wait a minute. So you've got a starting 11.
I've got a starting 11. I didn't do like a whole squad or whatnot.
All right, let me guess a few positions.
Do you want to start from the goalkeeper and going down?
Goalkeeper.
Goalkeeper's going to be pretty obvious, I reckon. Oh, maybe it won't, but it should be obvious.
I need to touch up on my geography.
Yeah, who?
Give me the nations that are included in the former Yugoslavia, so I know.
Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia, Slovenia, Macedonia, Albania, and Montenegro. Was that 6? That was 6.
Goalkeeper is Jan Oblak Slovenian or Slovakian? Slovenian, isn't it? Okay, so is your goalkeeper?
Yep.
Okay.
And like I know, like I think from last year he's a little bit out of form, but he's still the best goalkeeper out of all of them. Even though Livakovic is very good, but yeah.
Do you have Gvardiol as your centre back?
Yep.
Okay. Do you have, off the top of my head, do you have Stefan Savic next to him?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right, that's one.
See, the second centre back, there could have been a lot of them. That could be the second. There could be a lot of second centre backs. So Guardiola needs to be the first choice centre back.
Yeah. I don't think Serbia have. From last time I saw them, they didn't have a great defense, and we'll get into that a bit later. Montenegro, that is Stefan Savic. Is Milan's... No, he's Estonian. Milan Skriniar's I don't know the second centre back. The fullbacks, for the life of me, I don't know who the fullbacks will be. I'm guessing Sergej Milinkovic-Savic is one of the midfielders.
Nope.
No.
So
it's the whole Croatian trio.
Yes, and that's no bias. It's just that, like I did
Is this on form?
Yeah, I guess, and like I guess so. But I know. For instance, Brozovic has had a couple of injury worries, but even so, like, I'd still pick him. And also the fact that trio has had so many games together, like they have that chemistry and understanding. And I don't think you're losing too much by picking or even losing anything by picking Brozovic instead of Savic.
So who are the wingers? Do you have Perisic as a winger?
Yep.
Do you have two wingers?
Yep. Got 3 up front.
Striker's going to be interesting. There's a few choices there.
Yeah. I was thinking of going a 4-4-2, but I decided to go for a 4-3-3.
I was going to say that. I was even thinking off the top of my head, go a narrow diamond, because I don't know how good the wingers are to be knocking Sergej Milinkovic-Savic out of the team. Perisic is good, obviously. Who's the other one? Who have you got on the other wing?
Tadic.
There's no way I'm knocking out Sergej Milinkovic-Savic for Tadic. I'm finding a way to fit SMS in there.
Serbia played tonight, and apparently Savic was playing as a left wing in a 4-3-3.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's an interesting one.
At least on the team sheet, that's where he was positioned. So that was a strange one for me. But
that is a strange one. Yeah, so Tadic, the striker is the interesting one for me because you got the 2 Serbia boys to choose from. Edin Dzeko. Who else is in that pool? What was your shortlist for striker?
It was pretty much Vlahovic, Mitrovic, and Dzeko. All 3 of them are better than Petkovic and what Croatia has to offer. Those are the three best strikers in our little region, I suppose. So I'll go through the list. So Oblak in goal. I got Juranovic as right back.
That's good. Croatia have some good fullbacks, to be fair.
They have a couple. They have like 3 fullbacks in either position. So like 3 at right back, 3 at left back that are actually like really top quality. But I went through Juranovic just because I think he's out of all of the fullbacks that are available. I think he's the best one. And he just has so much energy and like fight. So I went for him as this. So I went with Guardiola as centre back, and I also went with Šutalo at centre back as well. And I went for the Croatian pairing just because I've seen them more. But with Šutalo though, it's a weird one because like Croatia always seem to, at least the last like couple of friendlies and Nations League games, they're always playing like Guardiola plus someone else. It seems a good one to mention is also Erlich as well and he was part of that. I think it was him and Šutalo that were part of that centre-back partnership that beat France back in the Nations League a couple of months ago. And it was our first ever competitive win against France. Like in 30, since we've become a nation in 30 years. So like now they were part of that centre-back partnership. But I went with Šutalo. Yeah?
Not the one you wanted. Not the game that you wanted to win.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I went with Sosa at left back just because I think he has way more energy than Barisic.
But he's got a good delivery.
Barisic. Yeah, but Sosa has a really good delivery as well. So I'd personally prefer him over Barisic. And then the midfield 3 is Brozovic, Modric, and Kovacic. I don't really need to say much there. Like I know that Savic was a really hard one to keep out, but like I can't break up that trio. If I want to also bring in that, I guess, the functionality or the chemistry of the trio into question. And I was thinking about a 4-4-2, but then if I go 4-4-2, and I know with a narrow diamond, I could probably get all 4 of them in then. But then I don't really have any width, and I know with those left and right backs, they can go up and down. They do have the energy and legs to go up and down, but I don't know. I just think that it's especially in today's modern game, I think a 4-3-3 just suits playing against a wide variety of systems better. And it's like the go-to formation for pretty much every team in the world right now. And then
I don't know about that, but we'll talk about that a lot more later.
Look, you know what? There's this video of Cruyff back in the 90s or early 2000s. He was talking on Dutch TV, and he was talking about formations. I need to find it. It's been years since I watched it, but the basic gist of it was he was basically saying all these formations are basically 4-3-3s. Like a 3-5-2 is a 4-3-3. It's just that depending on whether you're defending or attacking, the way that the players move and the transitions occur, it turns into a 4-3-3. And all these different and depending on where the ball is in the field. So he had a very interesting take on saying like every formation is a 4-3-3 anyway. It doesn't matter what. So I don't know. Like, and look, Cruyff is probably one of the greatest football philosophers of our time. You could, I think you could quite easily make that argument. But anyway, up front, so I got Tadic, Vlahovic, and Perisic. I think, like I said, I wanted to go for a 4-4-2, and I have Vlahovic and Mitrovic, but it's very hard to keep Perisic and Tadic out because I think that, especially Tadic, like since he's moved to Ajax, he's been absolutely fantastic. And Perisic, like, he's an absolute workhorse. He's probably like one of the best two-way players in football at the moment, or even over the past couple of years. And Vlahovic, I went over Mitrovic just because I think he would link up better with the other players, and he also has the end product that pretty much around the same level of end product that Mitrovic has anyway. And he's younger, so
Dzeko's been sneaky good this season.
Yeah,
well.
and Pjanic and Dzeko were honourable mentions I wrote down. Like Pjanic more so on like what he's done in the past. Like he'd be on, he'd make the squad for sure. Dzeko would make the squad as well. Mitrovic, Milinkovic-Savic, like Milinkovic-Savic, like I said, he was very hard. If football was 12 players, he gets in. But it's played with 11, so yeah, like maybe I could have gone like 3 at the back, but then Kovacic, Modric and Brozovic, they neither one of them it's hard. Like to get that fourth.
It's a good team.
Yeah, it's hard to get that fourth midfielder in there.
Yeah, for functionality for sure.
Yeah,
but just for dream team aspect.
Like maybe
the best names on paper.
Maybe for instance, you could go like if you go a narrow diamond, so a 4-4-2 narrow diamond. Maybe Brozovic defensive mid, Modric and Savic next to each other, right in front of him, and then Kovac as a number 10. But since
I think all four of them can almost like rotate between any of the positions. They're all such smart footballers, and they're a little bit. I think Sergej's the one who is the most different, but I think those three Croatian midfielders are very similar in what they can do and maybe can't do, but Sergej's the one with a bit more physical, imposition in there. He imposes a bit more in there, but. No, I think it's fair to put those three, especially after what we saw last World Cup and what we've seen in the Nations League of them working together, and they're all playing at top clubs, obviously, and playing, well, maybe not at the start of this season in Brozovic's terms because of injury, and Kovacic a little bit in and out of the team.
Yeah, some niggles.
Chelsea.
Yeah, but
it's hard to go against those.
But
three.
You know what? Like after going through all the teams and all the players that I could pick from, like the defense is still this is very similar to the Croatian team. Like obviously because it's dominated by Croatian players, but it's pretty much the same as the Croatian team, except now there's an actual striker you can rely on to score goals and finish. Like when you have the ball in and around the 18-yard box. But other than that, like if I was to send this team to the World Cup with Savic or without this 11, it's not like suddenly they're gonna win it. Like I think that this may be like putting in Vlahovic and Tadic pretty much. This probably sends them to like maybe a guaranteed quarterfinals. Whereas, like, right now, for Croatia, for instance, quarterfinals is a very good result, but it's not guaranteed. I'd say, like, you would expect this team to make the quarters at the very least.
Yeah, I could go along with that. It fills in one hole. It doesn't necessarily fill in that.
Yeah, I still think the defense is maybe lacking. Like, Guardiola is, like, he's still young, but he's shown that he can potentially be that next world-class centre-back. But just needs that one next to him, and I was surprised that Serbia didn't really have, like, albeit I don't really watch Serbia play too often, but like they don't have any world class centre backs or even anyone that's even close to being world class. So like, yeah, and you know who else would have been a very decent shout had depression not hit him? Ilicic for Slovenia. He was a monster. I think like 2 or 3 years ago at Atalanta. Like he could have, for instance, displaced Vlahovic.
Yeah, or he could have even played on the wing.
Yeah, like
He's
Tadic.
quite versatile across
Tadic,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, across that front line. So yeah.
But yeah, like
No, I
he
think
would have been a really good shout.
yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think that, and obviously if you, I'm not going to throw it back because then we'll be here forever. But yeah, I think that sums it up
Throw
perfectly, and
throw
it
it back.
shows you. Well, I was going to say another one. I'm pretty sure Marakamchik as well from back in the day.
Oh
He's
yeah.
a lot of fun, and he'd be that creative midfielder. But
But that gives you another
the
midfield
midfield's
problem.
stacked.
Yeah, the midfield's stacked.
Yeah, I know the midfield's stacked, and it's sort of it's indicative of definitely what Croatia are, and a few other countries that we'll probably get to later, in terms of very glaring strengths and very glaring weaknesses in units and in areas of the pitch.
Yeah, for sure. But like, I think it's an interesting way to view it. Maybe there's some people that watch, for instance, Serbia or Bosnia more, that are like, oh no, this player should definitely get in. Like maybe one of the defenders or one of the left or right backs.
That's what the comments are for.
Yeah, that's what the comments are for. So get in there, give us some hassle. Yeah, we'll discuss it. But Caleb, I think this is a perfect way to transition then into the actual World Cup itself, and a little fun way to sort of kick things off. But look, the World Cup is 2 days away from the opening ceremony. Who's Qatar facing in the very opening match?
Ecuador.
As the song goes. I don't know. Like it's a really weird one to expect. Like it's meant to be like a winter World Cup. I guess in one sense we got a winter World Cup in Brazil a couple of years ago. We got a winter World Cup in South Africa a couple of years ago, considering they're both southern hemisphere, even though like their winters are like still like 20 degrees ish. Like they're still warm-ish winters.
South Africa got a little cold, a little chilly, but Brazil, like you can get those tropical areas, and
yeah,
it was still like really hot in some of them.
Yeah, so and we check the weather as you do, and like for next week at least, the top temperature is going to be like what 28, 29 degrees. During summer World Cups in Europe or North America or whatnot, they're playing at the same times pretty much, like 1 p.m., 3 p.m., etc. And they're playing in 30-degree weather, sometimes more, sometimes higher. So I guess it is maybe a different type of heat. I'm not sure if it's more or less humid, or maybe it's probably more dry, I'm guessing, than humid in Qatar. But like, what do you expect at least in regards to, I don't know, maybe the weather or how players might be facing things? Because like, in terms of like those things, I don't think it's anything different to what they've faced before. People that have gone to the World Cup.
Yeah, and well, it's interesting that we don't have a European summer World Cup, because I know you guys had somewhat of a scorcher this summer, so they would have been playing in maybe higher than above average temperatures for a World Cup if we did. But yeah, like upon seeing the weather a bit closer to the start date and everything, I had checked average temperatures before, but now you can really get a feel for it. It should be, like you say, around that 30-degree mark, high 20s, around 30 for these games. So like you say, in terms of that, it's not going to be too different. And I guess on the back of that, you can kind of expect the games to maybe look like they have traditionally in World Cups, in terms of slow pace, sit a bit deeper, not much transition game, cagey, rely on your defense, and then nick a goal. And that's what basically World Cups have been for my whole life, basically. I know we've had some better than others, but I've even been watching like classic matches from previous World Cups, the 80s, the 70s. I think yesterday I even watched the 58 World Cup, which was a bit of a harder one to watch in black and white. I had to have Wikipedia open so I could check who the players were all the time. But the game, look, honestly, the game's still 90% the same as what it is. And in international football, it feels even more stark that the game is similar to what it was even back then. Um, so, like in terms of those tactical things, that high intensity play we see in club football, on in terms of the weather, I don't think it leads itself to look like that. I think it will look more like international football. But the interesting one is in terms of when the World Cup is being played, and can we expect to see a different World Cup because it's being played in the middle of a season, um, where we know we've already had a few high-profile injuries and a few high-profile. Maybe they'll be in, maybe they'll be out. But to be fair as well, I think we always have them at World Cups. We always have players getting injured, maybe towards the tail end of a season. It's like, oh, will they be fit for the World Cup? Won't they? You remember Wayne Rooney in '06? I think he did his metatarsal in like the second last game against Chelsea of the season. So to be fair, to go in too hard on the timing of the World Cup in terms of injuries, I think it's a little unfair just because we do usually get this for any World Cup. Um, but yeah, in terms of when it's being played, are the players maybe it's hard because can you say that the players might be fresher from not going through a whole season and not going through the mentally taxing portion of the season as well, which is the back half of the season where you're playing Champions League knockout stages and you're playing games that may decide a title in the run-in. So mentally you could be fresher. But from what we've seen in club football in the recent weeks leading up to the World Cup, the season was becoming a grind and players' legs looked a bit heavy, teams looked a bit lethargic. Whether that was players saving themselves for the World Cup or whether that was just the natural toll of the season where you're playing two games every week, midweek, weekend, midweek, weekend, all the way in the run-in, whether that's just taken its toll on these players. So if that's the case and it's taken its toll, I think we can expect to pretty much see, I'd say pretty much a traditional World Cup in terms of game style. I don't think there'll be high pressure from many teams. It'll be interesting to see if some teams do adopt a high pressure tactic just because that is so in vogue for this World Cup. But at the same time, I mean, if to pull one example, Klopp's Dortmund were in vogue just before the 2014 World Cup, and like you say, that was a winter World Cup. Although some locations were very tropical, very hot in Brazil, and we didn't really see a breakaway. We didn't see too many teams really pressing. Obviously, can't remember every game from that World Cup off the top of my head, and again, that's why there's the comment section. So if I'm missing something, but yeah, from my memory, that World Cup was very similar to pretty much every World Cup I've seen in my lifetime. So, look, my instinct is to say that we're going to see, in terms of football style, a very similar World Cup to what we normally see. But there is a spanner in the works with the timing of the World Cup and maybe even the advancement, so to say, of tactics and transitional game and how in vogue that is. So there is a chance that we could see different types of games. I'm just not banking on that, to be quite honest.
Do you think though that it'll be more defensive because the teams have only been together for a week before the matches start? Because like we just had the last matches from the season or from the leagues just on Saturday, Sunday that's just gone by, and we're already starting now this Sunday. So they've essentially had less than a week because I think most of them flew out on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. Most teams, so they've only had 4 or 5 days really together, whereas generally they have up to 4 weeks. So like the season ends in May, and I think the World Cup starts in the second or first week, like at end of the first week of June generally. So like they have 3 or 4 weeks together, whereas now they only have 4 or 5 days before their first game. So do you think it goes more defensive then?
Yeah, that is a very interesting point in terms of the lack of training camps and the lack of, for a lot of nations, the lack of ability to get together and work on things. A few nations have had that advantage. A few of those Middle Eastern nations have had training camps, like Saudi Arabia and Qatar, I hear. Um, so, so you expect those nations to be organized, but also on the flip side, those nations that haven't had a chance, to your defensive point, maybe we could see a less defensive World Cup because the nations that maybe would have traditionally relied on being a stout defense, being very well organized and trying to nick a goal. They haven't quite had as long to work on that. So there is a possibility that going into this World Cup, it's very much, it always is. Football always is based on individual quality. But we could see one where it's more based on individual quality just because these teams haven't had time to really hone in on their discipline and their defensive structure. Although I will say as well, the old adage is defense is easier to coach than attack. So these are all international standard players. I don't imagine it will take too long to get used to what the team is trying to do, especially because these teams have been working, like every national team is a cycle and you're trying to build for the next World Cup. So these teams have all been building for this moment, even though I'm sure they would have all loved to have a training camp. But yeah, I think that's an interesting question because you could get World Cups and tournament football traditionally is pretty defensive stuff, built on resolute and well organized defenses. But we could, to your point, have a World Cup where maybe they haven't been able to get that sort of discipline in like they normally would, and maybe we could see one where the individual quality shines a little bit more brightly, which will be great for nations like France in particular, Brazil. So yeah, that's an interesting one. That one I really don't know which way it will go in terms of the lack of training camp. And also, we might see. I think we'll see defensive football just from the standpoint that these are maybe some of the most, or definitely some of the most high pressure games these players will be involved in their career because it's a World Cup. The margin for error is so small. So I think from that standpoint, we'll see defensive games anyway. But yeah, I think that will be fascinating to see. What we'll get into, and that's the point I was going to make. Sorry, that because it's so high pressure, maybe we see a few teams capitulate more so than other World Cups, just because they haven't had that team bonding and that real what is it, like 2-3 weeks of a training camp where you're all together and you're all bonding for that long and you've all got each other's back. Maybe when the going gets tough in these high pressure moments, we see a few more capitulations. I don't want to say it for any Brazilians who might be listening, but 7-1 in 2014.
Yeah.
If you haven't rewatched that one, if you're not Brazilian and you haven't rewatched that one,
I don't think they ever will.
It is one of the most jarring moments in sport I've ever seen. It's when they go 5-0 down in the first half. It's just people are crying. It's like someone has been brought out onto the pitch and shot in front of their very eyes. It's just crazy to watch.
I remember that, and like the scenes were like, I don't know, you can't, like you said, it's like someone was being like shot or sacrificed in front of like the whole entire crowd, or like maybe but like because like Brazil, the identity of Brazil is always known to be with football. Maybe like, for instance, like imagine sacrificing like your nation's most known individual. They may as well have brought Pele out and just like hacked his head off or something. They would have had the exact same reaction. But you know what I was going to say as a point. I'm not too familiar with how the Asian Cup went, and like I know the African Cup of Nations was earlier in the year, but I have a feeling that because of the lack of training camp going into it, I think the teams that, and like because we had also the European Cup and I'm not sure whether the Copa America got the Euros, but I'm not sure about the Copa America whether that got delayed because of COVID. But you know how it was supposed to be played in 2020, the Euros, and got played last year in 2021, so it was only a year later. That so it's essentially the same teams, or the same squads that have gone to the Euros minus maybe one or two players. So a lot of these teams have actually, like, from what I can see, the coaches have picked pretty much the exact same, like, or very similar squads to what they took to the Euros, probably because of familiarity and like between themselves and the players, and also between the players as well, and like themselves. So maybe the lack of training camp won't really matter, considering a lot of these players have actually played together in the national team. Whereas, like, maybe if the Euros were in 2020, you might have had a couple of retirements. You would have had more new faces coming in to the teams, because like if we look at England's squad, it's probably very similar to who they took to the Euros. Except I think like the only addition is James Maddison really, and maybe one other, maybe Aaron Ramsdale has been an addition as well. I'm not sure if Pope went to the Euros or not. He might have been the backup goalie. I think he was.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But essentially, like it's the same team really that they took to the Euros. Argentina as well. I'd say it's the exact same squad that they had at the Copa America last year. So maybe the lack of training camp won't affect these teams that had that had their continental tournament last year.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think just it being so, we're not used to a continental tournament, well, particularly the Euros being so close to a World Cup. It's always 2 years. So you can take through those feelings that you had from getting that training camp in, and like you say, having mainly the same squads. So yeah, maybe that sort of theory about these teams maybe not being as unified as they normally would, maybe it's not a problem because of that factor. So yeah, that's a really good point to bring up as well.
And then you also had Nations Leagues. Games for which are still, they're not just friendlies, they're actually competitive games for the European team. So that might be an added, I guess, advantage for the European teams going into this World Cup, because I'm not sure. I don't think South America has. I think they want to introduce their sort of their type of Nations League fixtures or tournament, but I don't think they have yet. So like when the Nations League was on all that international breaks, then I'm pretty sure they just played friendlies, which isn't. You don't get the same level of competitiveness and intensity then.
I totally agree. I think the Nation League has been a good addition to the international calendar. I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Is there anything we're missing in terms of factors? I think we may have hit them all now. The factors that we can sort of tell.
Not really. Like touched on the weather.
Yeah.
Touched on lack of training camp and whatnot. I'm pretty sure that's it. So look, if you want to pretty much go through any predictions?
Before that, there's a few storylines I want to bring up with individuals.
Is this injured individuals or just in general?
No, I think injured individuals we'll probably talk about when we do those predictions through the group stages.
Because France had another casualty.
Who's with that and Cuckoo?
Yeah,
that's really bad news for them, no doubt. But no, in terms of individuals, there's some. First storyline I wanted to hit on is the throne, the concept of the throne, who sits on the throne right now. I don't think anyone sits on the throne, to be honest. I think we're going into it vacant. So I don't think Messi or Ronaldo could claim to be the best player in the world right now. And I don't know, it's a big deal because World Cup winners and guys who make their names in World Cups, I mean, that's an extraordinary list to sort of join the likes of, like, if you go through it from the start, not from the start, but from post-World Cup. I mean, you got Puskás breaking out in 54 with that famed Hungary team. Pele, obviously, in 58 was part of, upon watching that Brazil team of 58 and 62, Pele was the jewel who came in as a 17-year-old, but they already had some absolutely great players and some all-time greats like Garrincha, Didi, Vava, the two fullbacks, the two Santoses, unbelievable. But 66, you got Bobby Charlton, another all-time great. 70, Pele sits on the throne again, but maybe doesn't sit on the throne, cements his legacy. 74, Beckenbauer v Cruyff, need I say more? And then throw in a bit of Gerd Muller up front as well, just for good measure. 78 was probably 78 is another one where it's kind of a little vacant after Pele, and we're still kind of waiting for Maradona to come. So Mario Kempes makes his name in that World Cup. Cruyff, obviously, for a crazy story that I only learnt the other day, but his house in Barcelona got got broken into and his family got tied up, and I think
Really?
he was unwilling. Yeah, he was unwilling to leave his family, so he didn't go to the '78 World
I
Cup,
thought it was.
which is of
I thought it was a different story because like he was. I unless this is a new revelation, but I
no. I
remember.
want to hear your one as well.
Well, no,
Yeah,
I thought it was something just along the lines of that he had like because he played every qualifying match with Netherlands. They were favourites going into it, and then he didn't go to the World Cup. I thought it was because he fell out with the coach.
yeah. See, that wouldn't surprise me, and that's sort of. But I heard on another documentary that I was watching that was the reason what I just said. So I don't know. We'll have to get to the bottom of that one. But all I know is the Dutch made the final,
Yeah,
and if they had him, probably had a good chance of winning. Although there was some dodgy stuff going into an Argentinian home win for that. I think they needed to beat Peru by like 5-0 or something, 5 goals in the last second group stage game, and they beat them 6-0. So maybe something dodgy
maybe
going on there.
maybe it was some Argentinians in Spain as well that broke into his house. So
Maybe. But yeah, then we go to 82. And again, it's still a little bit of a mishmash. Paolo Rossi is undoubtedly the main man in 82. That hat trick against Brazil in that second group stage sort of game is still iconic. But obviously, you have the rise of Michel Platini around that time, 3-time Ballon d'Or winner. And he was probably the main man going into 86, where there's no doubt who took all the limelight from that World Cup. And he probably held on to the throne. Diego Maradona held on to the throne probably for the next 4 or 5 years with Napoli and still helping Argentina make a final in 1990 as well. And then again, a little bit of a mishmash in the early 90s. I don't really know who has it. It's kind of vacant up until the 94 World Cup. I guess Romario sort of sits on it after that World Cup. But it's very brief because then obviously we have Zidane and Ronaldo come. I don't know who you want to put on the throne during that little era at the late 90s, early thousands, because they're both such excellent choices. Both win World Cups in that time. Zidane obviously gets a Euros on top of that and a couple of Champions Leagues, which for me pushes him a little bit over Ronaldo. But if you're going to tell me Ronaldo, I'm not going to argue with you because he had that awesome season for Barcelona as a 19-year-old or whatever he was. It was an unbelievable season. And then you sort of go, Ronaldinho comes along, Kaká very briefly as well, sitting on the throne. I guess Ronaldinho was definitely the main guy going into the '06 World Cup.
yeah.
And then ever since Kaká, it's been Messi or Ronaldo. Take your pick. So I think it's been vacant. I don't think we have someone. 2018, we definitely had Messi, probably is the best, but Ronaldo was coming off a Champions League win again and completing the three-peat. So you told me Ronaldo as well. But this World Cup, I don't think either anyone, because Messi and Ronaldo have since gotten old, and visibly so, although Messi has rolled back the years somewhat this season. But yeah, I don't think either of them can have a claim to being the best player in the world. And my question to you is, does anyone else have a claim at the moment? Or is it very dependent on what happens in this World Cup to have either a definitive best player in the world or a competition between maybe one or two players to see who is sitting on the throne, who is the best player in the world?
It might be sort of that lull period between like 2000 to like 2004, 5, before Ronaldinho really cemented himself. Because like you mentioned Ronaldo and Zidane, but Ronaldo, that wasn't the same Ronaldo before, because he had was it a knee injury that he had at Inter, and that he was never really the same after that. And Zidane as well, like. Yeah, he won the Champions League, he won the Euros and whatnot, but he didn't win a Ballon d'Or at all in the 2000s, did he?
I don't think he did. I think he only won that one in 9.
Yeah, like if you have a look at the Ballon d'Or winners, like there's no double ups, there's no three-peats like you were getting with Messi and Ronaldo. I'm not sure whether Dino won two Ballon d'Ors or whether he won. But I think back then it was
he only won one.
Yeah, but I think they had the other one where it was FIFA World Player of the Year. I think he won two FIFA of those, and then they combined.
I think he did.
Then they combined the two afterwards. So like we might be, I guess, in that lull period now where we're transitioning away from Messi and Ronaldo, and maybe then that like we're gonna get like one player, a different player winning the Ballon d'Or every year, and like no one really cementing themselves at the top of the tree. Similar to tennis, like where it's been dominated for the past 20 years by Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. And like the last 15 years has been dominated by, like football's been dominated by Ronaldo and Messi. So maybe we're going to get that lull period until someone really cements themselves. Unfortunately, someone like Haaland doesn't play for a Spain or a France or a Brazil or anything like that. I think he could. He was born in England, so he could have played for England. So, and then yeah, like it's gonna be. I think it's gonna, like I said, I think it's gonna be that lull period. In terms of this World Cup, the obvious one that stands out in mind would have been Benzema if he didn't get injured at the start of the season, because you would have expected him to carry on that club form, especially that Champions League form, into going into this season and into the World Cup. But injuries have sort of set him back. But I don't know if any player really stands out in my mind. Like, in all honesty, because with France, like they got Pogba missing, they got Kante missing, they got Nkunku missing now. Is there one Varane? I think he's in the squad, but he's gonna miss the first game or two.
By accounts, yeah.
So like they're just so injury ravaged at the moment. So like who knows how Mbappe will go then with so many injuries like behind him. It's hard to say really like what individual might stand out. Like the obvious ones are going to be, Ronaldo and Messi, considering this is their last World Cup, but Neymar as well, because apparently this is his last World Cup as well. It's going to be interesting then.
Yeah, and I want you to hold those thoughts, particularly on Ronaldo and Messi, because I don't think they're fighting it out for the throne. They're fighting it out for maybe something bigger than that. But I think the obvious one that stands out to me, and it's no surprise for anyone who's listened to the pod, but Mbappe has a chance to sit on that throne. I mean, if he can, like you say, the French don't come into it with great stability, so to speak, in terms of who they can pick for the squad and who's out now, and big injuries. It's good that they have so much depth, but that midfield is, when we get to it, we'll talk more in depth. But that midfield does not fill you with confidence.
They haven't played together for that long, that midfield, because it's been dominated by Kante and Pogba.
Yeah, this midfield, no way. So that will be interesting in itself. But it's interesting because I don't think it's so much like the early 90s, where I really think, like, without deep diving in, I just think we had a real sort of a talent. I don't know. The talent went missing for just 5 or so years. Like, who are the best players? You got Lothar Matthäus, but he's like a very functional holding midfielder who is considered maybe one of the best players of that time. And he wins the World Cup in 1990 with Germany. Is probably the best player in that Germany team. They had a few other decent players, but no one on an all-time stage. Maybe if we were to compare it, it might be more like the late 70s, early 80s, where you had some very good players around, like I mentioned, Kempes, Paolo Rossi, Michel Platini coming through. These are all absolute all-time very good. Maybe not the top bracket, but just below it. And I think if it isn't one player to sit on the crown, like the storyline I'm rooting for is Kylian Mbappe to go back to back and to be really good in this World Cup and to cement himself as a true. He's on his way to being named maybe in that top bracket with all those guys, because I think it would be awesome to have a guy like that again, a guy like that on the international stage in our lifetime, because Messi and Ronaldo they've been very good international players. Ronaldo, obviously, the highest goal scorer of all time for his national side, and Messi winning a Copa America finally and getting to a World Cup in 2014. But nothing on that sort of Pele level that we saw early on, a guy who could do that for the national team like that. So I think it'll be fun to have that in our lifetime. So that's why I'm kind of rooting for that. And he's the obvious choice. He's probably the only choice of a player who, although your Benzema shout is very good as well, does Benzema have enough years to have a prolonged stay on the throne if he is really good in this World Cup and France do really well? Maybe, because he's already defying father time, as we've seen a lot of players do in recent years. So that one's a good shout. But Kylian Mbappe is maybe those two, and it's funny that they're both French, but it's maybe those two who are the only two players who I can definitively say if France win this World Cup and they're big parts of it. Well, then you have a question of who sits on the throne between those two if they're equally big parts as well. But I think they're the only guys who can sort of have a claim to it after this World Cup. And then when you look at like below that, and this is why I compare it to the late 70s, early 80s, I think we have a lot of talent who maybe aren't at that level to be definitively the best player in the world, but players who could be winning Ballon d'Ors in future years and players who can be excellent all-time players in the future. You look at a Jamal Musiala, you look at Vinny Jr., you look at all these young players who we've been mentioning throughout the season. Obviously, I'm missing a lot in that list, but
Martinelli.
But yeah, these, huh?
Martinelli.
Maybe not quite. I don't know if he's a guaranteed starter in Brazil. But,
Yeah, who knows?
But these players, and obviously one who's not there in a Haaland as well, who you can expect to probably win a Ballon d'Or or two in his time as well. So yeah, it could be a case where we have players rotating through it. We have a lot of talent, and no one definitively has claim to that throne. Or yeah, like I said, I think Mbappe is the guy who could be leaving this World Cup and saying I'm the best player in the world if he's able to lead France deep to a final at least. I'd say maybe win a golden ball from those efforts and yeah, I'm interested in that storyline in terms of that because, like I keep saying, this is the absolute apex of football. This is the biggest stage of them all to be playing on. So this is where, if you want to be in that all-time company, this is where you need to perform. The other thing, if you didn't have anything else to add on that, the other one, and I touched on it with Messi and Ronaldo, and I exclude them from this conversation because I think their conversation is more of a legacy conversation rather than a here and now conversation. But if Messi or Ronaldo were to be a pretty big part, I don't even think they need to be the biggest part of a World Cup win. And we'll get to them when we talk about Portugal and Argentina briefly in the build-up. But if they were to have a pretty big part and their team was to win the World Cup, does that, for you, does it cement them as the GOAT, or does it just enter? Are they not in the GOAT conversation yet for you in terms of, I don't know, when you compare them to maybe 4 or 5 other guys in history who could be above them? Are they not quite there and they need this? Or are they already there and a win in this World Cup sort of, for you, puts them as maybe not undisputed number one, but probably in most eyes the number one player of all time, which is a big statement.
I just want to mention something in regards to I guess maybe how football's developed, and then that might answer your question, I guess, a little bit. I saw an interview with Messi. I just saw the transcript of it. I think it was Messi that was saying that basically when he was growing up, he was growing up playing football in the streets. He had a ball at his feet every single day. His punishment if he didn't do well in school was that they'd take his ball away. So he was then forced to do well in school and whatnot. And he was basically saying that the players or kids of today, they're not out playing on the streets anymore. They're immediately injected into the academies. And that's what we've, I guess, touched on a couple of times on this podcast as well, where you don't really get those individuals with their own unique sort of way of controlling a ball, shooting a ball and whatnot. They're all taught the same system, the same style, the same technique, and they're all very similar, the players, and the game has then become more tactical rather than individual based, which is why you're not seeing someone like Maradona win the World Cup pretty much on his own, or Pele as well. I'm not sure whether he really won it on his own, but he was like that standout in that team. And that's, I guess, why Ronaldo and Messi in our generation, they haven't been able to win the World Cup. And I think, for instance, like Messi's goal scoring record at the World Cup is absolutely horrific. I think at the Brazil World Cup, he only got like 1 goal or 2 goals. I don't think he got any in the knockout stages, if I'm not mistaken. And then in the one in Russia as well, I think he only got like 1 or 2 goals. So like he isn't really even scoring goals in World Cups either. Mostly because the teams know what kind of danger he is, and instead of giving one player, like back maybe like 30, 40 years ago, giving one player the task of trying to mark him out of the game, you're pretty much putting 2 or 3 players on him. And we see that in club football as well. Like I especially see that a lot with Saka. Like he's getting triple teamed a lot of the time. So he's dragging 3 players out to him, which obviously leaves then space for other players. But because he's getting triple teamed, you can't expect one player to beat 3 players. It's near impossible. Especially the way they defend now, where like if one player does get beaten, the next player is there to pick up on that sort of heavier touch to beat that first player. Whereas like back in the day, it was like, okay, you beat one player, then another player's like 10 meters and then away from him, so then you have time to control the ball, recontrol the ball, and beat him or whatnot. So in terms of Messi and Ronaldo not winning the World Cup in today's game, I'm not going to fault them for that, considering how much they've won already. But like in terms of GOAT status, but there's obviously like different ways of measuring it. Like you can go the eye test, purely eye test. You can go obviously statistics, so like, and then you can obviously go achievements as well, and then you can, I guess, combine the 3 of them. If you want to combine the 3 of them, and like for me, for instance, it's Ronaldinho. Eye test, achievements. I think he won everything that there is to win, both individually and for a team. He's won World Cup, he's won Copa Americas, he's won Champions League, he's won league titles as well. I'm not sure whether he won it with AC Milan, but like he's won league titles for Barca. I'm not sure whether he's won multiple league titles in different European competitions, but like for me, Ronaldinho is probably the best I've ever seen with my eyes live. But Messi and Ronaldo, obviously, like their stats, like they have like over 700 goals combined, international and club. Messi obviously has like 300 or 400 assists as well, so he has like 1,000 goal contributions. But yeah, look, I'm not gonna. They're definitely there to be like in that GOAT discussion alongside Pele, alongside Maradona. A lot of people probably won't put Ronaldinho in there because his career was only really 3 or 4 years of peak, whereas these guys, it was 15, 20 years of peak. Pele as well, like his was probably 10, 15 years of peak, although he never played in Europe, but he did it. He won 3 World Cups. So, and then Maradona as well, like he dragged that Napoli team, he dragged that Argentina team, and he was probably like one of the best players for maybe 5 or 6 years, whereas Ronaldinho was slightly shorter, where it was 3 or 4 years. So yeah, it's they're definitely there in the discussion or at that table.
So does a World Cup win put them at the top of that discussion then for either of them?
Well,
Being a big part of it, obviously, as well.
Well, for instance, all right, Messi's always compared to Maradona. Maradona never won a Champions League. Messi definitely achieved way more at club football than Maradona, although Messi he was like at Barcelona pretty much his whole entire life. He sort of dragged that Argentina team to the final in 2014, sort of.
It was an ugly Argentina team,
yeah.
for sure.
And I don't think and like I said, like today's football, you don't really have that individual that can drag teams the way that you used to be able to.
Wait, before you go on, I just want to touch on that point just quickly. I'm not saying you're wrong because you're definitely right in the analysis of what football was back then. Most of the time, you do beat a man, you do get a lot of space, and then you're looking to beat another man. Whereas it's more condensed, more athletic nowadays, obviously. But I will say it's pros and cons because now teams are adapting to try and stop teams in that way, in the tactical sense, in double and triple teaming threats, because obviously what they've taken away from back in the day is you can't kick the shit out of these great players like they did back in the day. And obviously the famous story is Pele at the 66 World Cup. He was so fed up after it that he's like, I'm never playing in another World Cup again. And luckily he reneged on that and came back for 70. But yeah, I think it's pros and cons. So like where we're comparing eras, there's definitely those nuances that you talk about. But I think all in all, it sort of adds up to the same thing, that they're playing the same game. They're still playing football there, and there's pros and cons to each little scenario on how to stop people and stuff like that. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that before you go on.
Yeah, but in terms of GOAT status, yeah, I think for a lot of people, people's argument has been, for Messi at least, he's missing a World Cup to eclipse Maradona, and Ronaldo is obviously the best Portuguese player that's ever played. That's without a doubt. So he doesn't have that argument, you need a World Cup to eclipse Eusebio. So he doesn't have that. But probably, if winning a World Cup for either of them, will only be one. And like a lot of people will be like, but Pele won 3. It's like, but he won a different era, a different tournament structure as well.
And let's not forget, he got injured in the first game of 62. So he wasn't a big part of that team at all.
Yeah, exactly. So if either of these two players win the World Cup, then it probably will cement them as the GOAT.
Yeah, I think I could go along with that, especially if they're a big part of it. As much as it would pain me to probably say it, because to your point, the football has changed. I think it's more of a team game, for better or for worse, however you want to look at it.
But I still think Ronaldinho is the best player of all time.
Yeah, I love that you've thrown that one out there, and for my heart, it makes my heart happy, but for my head, I just can't go along with it. And the only reason I can't go along with it is just because I think he matches up quite nicely to Maradona, if we're going to make the comparison. And the only problem is Maradona was undoubtedly the key guy for that Argentina victory in '86, and Ronaldinho was part of a really good front three.
Yeah.
It's not his fault, obviously, but I think Rivaldo and more notably even Ronaldo was definitely the star man of that show. So if Ronaldinho was able to back it up in '06, when he was the main man,
because he won the Ballon d'Or that year.
Exactly,
and the Champions League.
You could definitely put him. For me, then I'd put him as GOAT as well, because to your point, the eye test, what a player to watch. But watching these guys, like watching Maradona against England in '86 is a pretty awesome experience in itself as well. So for me, I think I've put it on the pod before, but I have Franz Beckenbauer as my GOAT. The resume, the career, and if you get a chance, watching the '74 World Cup final, him against Cruyff, that West Germany team who, I mean, a lot of people say the wrong team won, and no doubt that Dutch team, for what they did in football terms, and Cruyff in particular, were revolutionary. But that West German team was freaking awesome from '74, and it was just a really good game. So if you get a chance to watch that,
I probably
really
I probably should watch.
Sorry, the only
go on.
Yeah, the only ding I'll put on Franz Beckenbauer, and it's a ding, but he got to do it with maybe the best striker of all time in Gerd Muller up front with him for club and country. So whether that's cheating in a GOAT case where you look at more singular guys, I don't think it is, because Pele had great teams around him. The one-man show thing is really more for Maradona, I'd say. So yeah, there's definitely arguments for all of these guys, but yeah, sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, I was sort of cutting you off as well, but like Johan Cruyff is like another one of my favorite players of all time. The only thing is, comparing him to Ronaldinho, Ronaldinho actually I didn't ever got to see live in a stadium, but I got to see like full matches of him like week in, week out a lot of the time. Whereas like Cruyff, I've only really seen highlights, and I think I may have only seen like 1 or 2 full matches of his. But like growing up, I loved Cruyff. Like he was one of my favorite players. And then obviously like everything that he contributed to football after he finished his playing career as well. Like he's pretty much responsible for what Guardiola is today, and what Barcelona became as well. So like he's probably he's at the table as well, even though he never won a World Cup.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
If he's not absolute top bracket, then he's not far off.
I think he's
Have to
definitely
go.
at the table for the top bracket because I think he's the first player to win 3 Ballon d'Ors in a row, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think he got. I think Franz disrupted him. I think he won one in
But he
between.
won 3
I think.
Champions Leagues in a
I
row
think.
as well.
Yeah, he was the first to win 3 Champions Leagues in the row as the main guy. Yeah, for
No, well,
sure. And then Franz did
not
that.
really because Puskas won, and yeah,
Sorry.
so he wasn't the
Di
first, but like,
Stefano, of course.
and
Di
Di Stefano,
Stefano was
yeah,
the original goat.
yeah, but that's another one we can throw into the mix as well.
No, of course,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, and his tragedy, obviously, Di Stefano is never getting to play in a World Cup. But for most
Why
of the
was
other
that?
all-time,
'Cause-
I don't think so. I think he started at Argentina, and they mustn't have qualified for those 50 and 54 World Cups.
because
Then I think he went.
he could have
And
played for
then he
Spain
played
as
for
well.
Spain. Yeah, he did play for Spain,
Yeah.
and again, I don't think they qualified. And then I think he played for Colombia, and he got them qualified, but then FIFA rejected him. They didn't allow him to play for Colombia because I don't know some nitty gritty technical stuff. So yeah, he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, to never play at a World Cup. So. But when you go through the list, and this is why, and just to finish this point, this is why I bring it up, but the World Cup is the stage where it's sort of the history book for all the great players. You can look through and any all-time great, except for obviously Di Stefano, has had an impact on a World Cup. Anyone who wants to be in that top echelon, who can be involved in top 10 all-time discussions, has made an impact on this tournament. And yeah, Messi and Ronaldo have a chance to if they're not in that discussion with the all-time greats, if they're not quite in that bracket, and if they're not in that bracket, it's not far off, but they have a chance to either be the GOAT or definitely be thickly in that conversation. So that's a huge storyline that obviously I think we're all looking forward to, particularly, and this will lead to sort of the preview we're going to do on the groups. Particularly because I think both of them have really good sides and really good squads that are capable of winning the tournament as well. And to your point, it's a team game now, so they need that. And I think both have it.
Yeah, for sure. So Caleb, shall we move on to, I guess, group predictions? And then I guess for each group, I guess we can sort of go into the team, like any standout teams and what we think.
Yeah, standout teams.
Yeah, and how they might go.
I'm sorry, I can't feign to have knowledge on your Qatars and your Ecuadors. I haven't seen enough of them. So really, this tournament.
The rule is you can't say Ecuador, you have to say Ecuador.
Ecuador.
Yeah, so that's the rule going forward. But look, we'll start with Group A, obviously. So that's Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, and Netherlands. Predictions first, or do you want to talk about Netherlands, Senegal, and give predictions later? Like, how do you want to run it?
Well, Senegal are obviously missing, or they're perceived to be missing Sadio Mane.
Yeah, the witch doctor didn't do his job.
So that's huge for them. They were probably the African nation that you might have had your highest hopes on. Although, upon hearing more, and I must admit I haven't seen any of their games yet, but upon hearing more and looking at the squad for Morocco, they might now have a claim to be maybe the African nation who could do the most damage in the tournament. But yeah, I think that's a huge blow for them, obviously. And the other noteworthy team, the one that I've had a chance to watch a fair bit of and obviously watch a lot of their players, is obviously Netherlands. And you know what? This team somewhat gives me that 2014 semi-final run vibes. Same manager, obviously, Louis van Gaal. Same style of play, 5 at the back, 2 midfielders, 3 up front. How they configure the 3 up front will be interesting to see, but there's one thing for sure, and that's Cody Gakpo has to be part of that front 3. He is, in terms of the offensive sense and someone who can create something, he is the jewel in that crown. He needs to be creating chances and maybe scoring a couple of goals in the tournament for them to go deep, I think. But you look at the defence, the back 3, I know Van Dijk's been off form, but Van Dijk next to Timber, and whether it be De Ligt, whether it be Ake, whoever it is, in international standards, it's a very solid back 3. Denzel Dumfries is a very good wing back. Daley Blint can work very nicely with in this system with him on the other side, with Dumfries on the other side, and then that midfield with De Jong and Koopmeiners in there, I think is very strong. Although it's only a two-man midfield, so it'll be interesting to see how they go up against maybe three-man midfields. I don't worry about them in the group. I think it will be them topping this group. You can't say it with certainty in a World Cup because you never know who the shock sort of group disappointments will be. But I don't expect it to be the Netherlands, and I expect them to top this group. And honestly, maybe a bit with home ground advantage. Qatar could even put themselves in the battle with Ecuador and Senegal to finish second in that group. And the funny thing about Qatar, even though I don't know really anything about them, but what I do know is that they are the reigning Asian Cup champions, which sort of took me by surprise. And I probably should have followed it a bit more, but I only learned that a couple of days ago. But yeah, they won the Asian Cup, so they have that experience in tournament football. They got the home ground advantage. They have a training camp advantage as well. So yeah, I think it will be a real battle between those three teams to see who comes out second, particularly with Mane missing for Senegal. Otherwise, I would have put Netherlands and Senegal through to the next round without thinking too much about it.
Yeah, like that's a big loss for Senegal. Like them missing Mane. I don't know too much about even like I'm just trying to look at the Ecuador team as well. Like I don't really recognize any of the players, so I'm not sure if you recognize any of the players. You follow the league.
They got a few Brighton boys, don't they? Estupinian and
yeah,
maybe Caicedo.
But
yeah, no, not too much.
I don't know. Like on paper, you'd probably expect Netherlands and Senegal to go through. But with Mane missing, maybe Ecuador. Like I don't know. Like I don't know enough about Qatar to really say whether they'll go through or not. But yeah, you expect Netherlands to finish first in that group, and then Senegal second, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll go along with that as well.
Yeah.
I still think Senegal have just enough quality to still finish second in
Yeah, and like they only won the African Cup of Nations 10 months ago. So
that's a good point. We have two continental champions in this group as well.
Yeah.
So.
But anything else to say on Group A or move on to Group B?
We can move on.
All right. So Group B, England, Iran, USA, and Wales.
England, your favourites from a year ago. So I'm happy to give you the floor to start on this group, and I'll feed off you.
Yeah, a year ago they were probably my favourites to win the World Cup, especially after their almost heroics at the Euros. But I don't know that I've just been put off by them after a couple of their recent performances, especially in the Nations League. I'm pretty sure they got relegated to the second tier Nations League as well.
I think they did, yeah.
Yeah, like on paper they have almost everything except a centre back partnership. And like people will argue like Maguire. Like yeah, Maguire had a good Euros, but he's barely featured for United, and when he has featured for United, he's been poor. Walker, who knows what his fitness will be like coming into the tournament. Then their left back, but then again they got Trippier that can play right back, and Trippier is pretty trusted by Southgate, so that shouldn't really be a big issue. But Stones as well, he's had a couple of injury worries in the past couple of weeks or months from the start of the season. And then Luke Shaw at left back, who I don't know, I don't really rate him that highly. Like he's okay, but he's not like standout. Like he's not an Ashley Cole.
No way.
Yeah. But the midfield, like Declan Rice, Bellingham, then depending on like where you play Foden, whether you play him in a front three or whether you play him in that midfield three, and then like you got Kane and I'm assuming Saka or maybe Sterling. They're good, but like I don't know. I'm not as crash hot on them as what I once was.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right to not be too crash hot on England going into this World Cup. But at the same time, I actually think that might bring its advantages to them, because if they went in off the back of that Euros making the final and missing out on penalties. And then there's a lot of pressure because people, or not pressure, but expectancy. There's always pressure on the English side. But if there's expectancy to go along with that pressure, I think that just ratchets things up a bit. And I think the last year, to your point, has dampened that expectancy for this World Cup. And I think there's more questions than answers with this England team, without a doubt. But I think, look, I'm a bit out on Southgate. I think he's been very rigid. I think maybe there's a bit of a Martinez at Belgium sort of scenario developing here, where I think maybe he's run his course as England manager. I think he had his window with the last two major tournaments in the World Cup and the Euros. That's my feeling. But if I was to offer a counter narrative, the fact that there isn't that expectancy, the fact that they play a pretty rigid sort of 5-4-1 or 3-4-3, whatever you want to call it. I think the fact that there's three centre backs, if he still wants to keep choosing Harry Maguire for the team, I don't know why, but definitely in a back three, he's better, he's more protected. And tournament football is about being pretty solid at the back for the most part. And obviously, they also have the Golden Boot winner from last World Cup in Harry Kane up front, and a genuine world-class striker, so they always have that focal point. And then I think there's enough talent in that midfield, in particular in Bellingham, but a few other players, Mason Mount. I know he has a bit of good form. See, the problem is the form and the sort of level that a lot of the players are playing at. Jordan Pickford is expected to start. I don't think he should. I think Nick Pope should start, although Nick Pope was horrendous on his last outing for England, but I still think he's the better goalkeeper. I'd even put Ramsdale above Pickford. But Pickford hasn't, at least Ramsdale's been playing for a team who are top of the league. Pickford's playing for a team who are struggling. Nick Pope as well has been playing for a team who are flying in the Premier League. So, and if I use the same thing for Pickford as I use for Declan Rice, he's also playing for a team that are struggling in the Premier League. So, I don't like it when players come in playing for, and Harry Maguire, we don't even need to talk more about his struggles. Luke Shaw's struggles for fitness. Trent Alexander-Arnold's struggles at the back. I mean, so look, it's interesting because the system might help them out. The system might allow him to play a Trent and then put Kyle Walker as the wide centre-back behind him, or Ben White as the wide centre-back behind him. And that would be interesting to see. They'll at least be a sort of link-up guy in that midfield, even though Trent will be classified as a wing-back. So, look, I'm not completely down on their prospects, because I look at the squad. I think in terms of winning a World Cup, it has enough to win a World Cup. You don't have to be stacked in every position to win a World Cup. History has shown us that. You just need to find the right balance and have the right system and be reliable enough game on game to do it. But the fact that a few of these key players are playing for clubs who aren't performing well, and the fact that the whole sort of country seems to be a bit out on the manager, and maybe the players are a bit out on his outdated tactics. Maybe not outdated, but, stale tactics. It's one that I can see going either way, but it's one that I definitely expect them to get out of this group without much problems. Because I think Wales are a team on the down as well. The US are a team on the up, but it might just be a bit too early for them, because I think they have either the youngest or the second youngest squad going into this World Cup. But an interesting theory being floated around on a few of the pods that I listen to is the USA for 2026, particularly given that will be a World Cup on their home soil. They could do some damage if these players continue to progress. So I didn't mind that shout. And Iran, obviously, I don't know much about Iran, but I know they have Carlos Queiroz in charge again for them, and we know what kind of football he plays on the national level, which is very pragmatic, very defensive tournament football, basically. So I expect England to get out of this group. I expect those other three, again, like in Group 8, to be challenging for second place. Personally, I hope the US get out of this group, because I think they're a bit more exciting than the other two can be. But that depends as well. If we get a Gareth Bale who's raring to go and who looks somewhat like an old Gareth Bale, maybe I'll hope that Wales get out of that group. But yeah, I think it will be a travesty if England don't get out of that group. And if they can look good in those three games in doing it, perform to a good level, then look, your pick of them winning again might not be completely off. To be fair, because I know the feeling is around them that it's not great, and I share that feeling. But I think there's also positives when you just look at the squad, look at the group they've been handed, and and the system that they play. I think there's something there.
So who's your pick for second then?
I'll go England and US.
I'm going England and Wales. Wait, who did we lock in, I guess, for Group A? It was Netherlands and...
Senegal.
Yes, Netherlands and Senegal. I think that's going to be a lot of people's picks. And they like if you go down to the TAB or whatever sporting agency you use, they're probably the two favourites to get out. Group C, we've already touched on Argentina a little bit. Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. Anything more to add on Argentina?
They're just they're actually a really good team, I think. And they're a lot of people's picks, so I'm not breaking ground by saying they're a really good team, but the form that Lautaro Martinez is coming in is really good. And I was listening to one of the Athletic podcasts the other day, and there was a really good point on it, so I'm going to steal it for this one. Lautaro Martinez is the kind of striker who forms partnerships with whoever he plays with, which bodes really well for this Argentina team because obviously while Messi's not a striker, he's going to have to form a partnership with Messi in those front areas. And he's a player who has excelled at doing that. He's formed a great partnership with Lukaku in previous years, with Dzeko coming in now, even when Joaquin Correa, who is another player who made the Argentina squad, comes in for Inter. He's just really intelligent at playing off other guys and accentuating their strengths, accentuating his strengths as well. So with Lautaro Martinez, he's a player as well who's coming into his prime, and I think he could be a real key for this Argentina. If not, he might be the main key for this Argentina team. I know a lot of the focus will be on Messi, but the form that Lautaro is showing coming into this is really good for them. The other one I wanted to touch on who made the squad, and it's great that he made the squad, is Paulo Dybala. I know he was injured for a long time before he got the call-up, which is great that he got the call-up, and I hope that we see at least a 90-something% Paulo Dybala at this World Cup, because the glimpses he showed for Roma suggested to me that he could be a key in this Argentina squad. Not necessarily the starting 11. I don't think he'll be a starter, but I think he could be an X factor off the bench because we know how mercurial he is. We know how talented he is. And the beauty of a squad game like this is that he doesn't need to show it for 90 minutes. He only needs to show it for a glimpse, and that could be enough to get Argentina through to the next round of a World Cup. So, I like the defence. I hope that Juan Foyth is fit at right back for them because I don't fancy Montiel or Molina as their backup choices at right back, who have had pretty horrific seasons for Atletico and Sevilla respectively. But Lisandro Martinez at the back has been really good. Emi Martinez has this fantastic record with Argentina. I think since he's come in, they've kept some ludicrous amount of... Is he injured? I haven't heard that one.
I thought he got injured for Aston Villa.
Well, for Argentina's sake, I'm hoping he's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that defense is looking as solid as it has for a long time for Argentina. Tagliafico is a player who's been around the block and knows how to play left back. And that midfield, while I don't like them individually in terms of Paredes, DePaul, I think Lo Celso is a big loss for them. I'm disappointed that
he's out,
he's injured and can't play. Yeah, I'm quite disappointed on that. But on the flip side, it does mean that we're likely to see a midfield of Paredes, DePaul, who's been working really well off Messi, and Enzo Fernandez, who made my third team so far of the season. And he's the one who adds a bit of bite to that Argentina midfield compared to the other two. And you could also use a Guido Rodriguez from Betis in there to add a bit more physicality and bite. So I think they got good options in midfield, horses for courses. And yeah, for me, it's no wonder to see why this Argentina team is so fancied by so many.
Yeah, they're definitely one of the favourites, and considering they won the Copa America last year, then they beat Italy in that Super
Finalissimo.
Finalissimo. That's what it
Finalissima.
is.
Yeah.
No, Finalissimo, but there will be a Finalissima. There's going to be a women's.
Yes.
There will be a women's version of it, I think, from next tournaments going onwards. Obviously, they're our picks to finish first. Potentially win the whole thing. The dream story would obviously be for, I think, if them and Portugal both win their groups, then they meet each other. They potentially meet each other in the final. So there's that. But who finishes second there? Like, I obviously don't know too much about Saudi Arabia. Mexico as well. They're always solid. Poland have Lewandowski, obviously. I'm not sure who else they really have. Szczesny as well as a goalkeeper.
Zielinski, Szczesny, a few decent players.
Yeah,
but Poland are very underwhelming when I watch them.
Yeah.
Because I think with that quality, they should be a bit better. And I'm still, my heart wants them to get through because of Zielinski and Lewandowski in particular, players I love watching. But my head, for some reason, says Mexico, even though they're not in very good form. They're not the same Mexico that have got into other World Cups, but I don't know, this Poland, I'm just always... I don't want to be fooled by Poland again and pick them because they always let me down. So I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to go for Argentina and Mexico. But yeah, I don't know too much about Saudi Arabia and Mexico, to be quite honest.
Yeah, like Poland always seemed to like disappoint. Like, for instance, like the last Euros, they were expected to make it out of the group, and then like they just underwhelmed. Like, I don't know if it's more like them having a reliance on Lewandowski, and if obviously Lewandowski isn't playing well, then they're not going to win because he isn't scoring the goals. Mexico is definitely a good shout. Don't know enough about Saudi Arabia. Actually, I think Croatia just played them the other day. They looked okay. I definitely wouldn't put them to get out of the group. It's between Poland and Mexico. Now, let me just see who Mexico have in their team, like at least who played. They beat Iraq the other day.
They got a decently solid midfield, although Guardado's like 50 years old. I don't know how he's still playing international football, but yeah, it's decent. And then you've got Raul Jimenez, who's taken himself off and not played for Wolves for months, but he's been training in Mexico, getting ready for the World Cup. I'm pretty sure Wolves fans aren't happy about that, but we'll see what kind of Raul Jimenez we get at the World Cup.
There's not really any players that I really recognise. I think a lot of them play in the MLS
as well. Do they have Irving Lozano from Napoli as well, who's a pretty decent player? He's not top notch, but he's okay.
He didn't play against Iraq,
or if he's
not on the bench.
Maybe I'm wrong on that.
He's not on the bench.
I'm still going with Mexico just for pedigree.
I'm going for Poland. I'm going for my European.
Yeah, good.
I hope brethren.
It is. Yeah. I hope it is Poland.
Yeah. All right. Group D, we got our nation in Australia there, France, Denmark, and Tunisia. In all honesty, ever since that golden generation of Kuhl, Viduka, Cahill, Bresciano,
that was the one.
Yeah, that was the one. If there was ever going to be a team that makes it deep into a World Cup, it was going to be them. And I think the A-League...
And we should have made it even deeper than we did in 06.
Yeah, and the A-League... I believe the A-League killed Australian football.
That's a whole pod. We could get a whole pod of that because I'm very much with you on that.
Because, all right...
No, we don't. We can't.
No. I just want to ask you. I just want to ask you a question. Has there been, since like that Kuhl Viduka era, has there been any? And I think that 2006 was when the A-League, or 2007 was when the A-League was inaugurated. Which player has made it in Europe really? Like Moy at Brighton, he was meh. You had Rogic
at Huddersfield.
You had Rogic at Celtic, but like, is there anyone else really that has made that sort of impact that like those boys have, that Cahill's made, that Bresciano has made? He was very good in the Italian leagues.
Save this. This is good. I reckon around a time, if we do a pod around a time where Australia have played, and they haven't played well, as I expect them probably not to. I think we can get like a good segment out of what's happened to Australian football since the '06 World Cup.
We'll save this.
I think the fact that we're asking these questions just tells us what we think of this Australia team.
Yeah,
that we definitely do not expect them to get out of this group.
Mm-hmm. But we've already, I guess, touched on France to an extent. Like they've had quite a lot of injury troubles with Varane.
The point I want, sorry to cut you.
Yeah. Well,
the point I wanted to make. The point I wanted to make on France is that they are and it's fitting, but they're the national team PSG. They have so much attacking talent. We're expecting a Benzema, Mbappe, Griezmann front line, and it would have been great if we could have had Nkunku as an option there as well. Defensively, they're pretty sound as well. Koundé, Varane, Saliba, and then the fullbacks, you've got either of the Hernandez brothers.
Is Koundé injured or not? Because I thought I saw something about that.
He made the squad. I don't know what his fitness is, but he made the squad, so I'm guessing they expect him to be able to play. Same with Varane a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But, if those names are able to play, they're still pretty good names. The fullbacks, Pavard's very functional. Pretty good right back, to be fair to him. And he can also play centre-back. Same with Lucas Hernandez on the other side. I don't know why it's a question between Lucas Hernandez and Theo Hernandez. I don't understand it.
Maybe the coach just gets confused.
No, I think Deschamps is going back to the 2018 ways. I heard on one of those athletic podcasts I was listening to. I think he's going back to the 2018 more disciplined and players that he really trusts. So it might be a case that Lucas Hernandez is the one he picks. I hope it's not, especially because this is the point, because obviously with PSG and France being similar because their midfields are so damn weak, I think a Theo Hernandez would be really important to being in the French starting 11 because he plays almost as an auxiliary. I can't say the word. Auxiliary. Yeah, an auxiliary midfielder with how much he creates and the positions he takes up. So I think he could be a really important player to help with that creativity deficiency we expect to see from that French midfield. So for me, it should be him. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting how this is the parallel of PSG just in a national team. And when you have that much quality up front and you have... Look, as long as those players can play and are fit enough to play, they have a pretty good defense. There's no reason why they can't win the World Cup for me.
It's pretty interesting that Denmark beat France twice in the Nations League, and then now they're versing them again. Well, they just beat them 2-0 in September, and they're playing them again now in a week's time. But I just want to go to the lineups of that last Denmark-France game. He had Camavinga and Tukameni. It's such an inexperienced midfield.
Well, have you seen who's in the squad? You've got the likes of Jordan Veretout and Matteo Guendouzi as options.
Yeah, and Guendouzi's very he's not trustworthy. He reminds me a lot of Verratti, but a worse Verratti.
And the senior member who's expected to start in there is Adrien Rabiot. So I think that says it all.
Yeah.
I'm not filled with confidence of that midfield.
Yeah, I'm not too hot on that. And
it might not matter.
But
they might not need to control games. They just need moments, and they need to defend decently.
Yeah, because you know what though, when I look back at the World Cup final 2018, I thought Croatia's midfield was way better than France's, and that was Pogba and Kante, and I think either Pogba
Matuidi would come in from the left.
Yeah,
sort of beef it up.
Yeah, and I felt like Croatia. We didn't lose the midfield battles. We lost because our defense was so slow, especially in comparison to Griezmann was quick back then, and especially Mbappe. We lost in the transition rather than losing midfield battle and getting overrun in the midfield. And now this midfield is even weaker than what it was back then. So,
and it didn't matter back then. Well, to be fair, that midfield was not weak. I think it was just overrun in that game because Pogba and Conte are good players. But
I know it wasn't weak, but it was outclassed. And now it's
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
younger and more inexperienced. Maybe we won't get overrun, but it's inexperienced.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And I don't know how much I have to say on
And
Denmark.
was France Australia the opening game of France at the 2018 World Cup as well? They were in the same group, weren't they?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, that's
I think we only lost 1-0 to a penalty.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was
Or 2-1, was it? Did we score a penalty as well? I can't remember.
I can't remember, but it's interesting that they're in the same group again.
Yeah, I know. And Denmark were in that group, were they not? I think they might have been. I think it's the same group apart from Tunisia.
I can't remember now.
But I'm gonna put my neck on the line and say this is the first shock I'm gonna predict. But I'm gonna say Denmark will top this group.
That'd be
And I don't know how the next round works, but that if it's C versus D, that means Argentina France. If Argentina top theirs,
a repeat of 2018.
Yeah, exactly. Which was probably the game of that tournament. To be fair, that Argentina France game. So, look, I'm still probably going to cling on to my at least hope that France will win it. But I do have questions of the midfield. I think Denmark are just solid all round. And obviously you point to those results in the Nations League, so they have this confidence against France. So yeah, I think they have a really good shot of topping this group. I don't think there's really any shot. Not any because it's football, but I don't give Tunisia or Australia much chance of even challenging those other two teams in France and Denmark.
Unless France have a 2002 capitulation moment.
Yeah, they need to melt that. Oh, and this is the stat that needs to be brought up anytime we talk about a defending champion. But in the 21st century, only once has the defending champion got out of the group stage of the next World Cup. Incredible.
Who was that then?
Do you not know?
Hang on, it would have been... No, it's not Spain. Italy didn't go to the 2010 World Cup, did they?
They went. They got knocked out in that group with New Zealand and Slovakia. Yeah, Slovakia.
Brazil.
Brazil in 06, yeah. They're the only defending champion to get out of the group stage.
Yeah. Huh.
In the 21st century. Crazy.
Yeah. That curse. But yeah, Denmark, man, like they could throw a spanner in the works and top that group. Because they have that mental edge over France, and they're just really solid. That could be a good shout. That could be a good shout. What
are you going with? Are you going chalk? Are you going France and Denmark, or are you going Denmark France?
Well, France and Denmark to get out, obviously.
Yeah.
You know what? They have that mental edge. They seem like they're in a better place as a team, a more cohesive unit. And there's just too many question marks, especially with all these injuries with France. I think Denmark gets out first. Yeah. And you know what? I'm gonna also
watch Denmark get knocked out of the group stage now.
You know what though as well? I don't know too much about Tunisia, but if France have an absolute capitulation, I can see Australia going through as well.
Oh my god!
I can,
that's a huge goal.
I can look. We've said it before. Like France's worst enemy is themselves, and they have all these injuries to their best players, and
and the curse.
Yeah, they have wait. What curse?
Well, in this century, defending champions been.
Yeah.
And obviously the what's the other one? The Pogba brother curse as well.
Yeah, but Pogba isn't going, so it doesn't that one doesn't apply anymore. But, yeah. Moving on to so Denmark, France, 1 and 2.
Yeah.
All right, Group B: Spain, Costa Rica, Germany. We haven't really talked about Spain too much, and we haven't talked about Germany too much. Costa Rica and Japan. We're just going to acknowledge that they're going to finish 3rd and 4th, respectively, or is it between Spain and Germany for first and second?
But I think Costa Rica and Japan will offer challenges, though.
I think Japan will offer a bigger challenge.
Yeah, I agree, but Costa Rica as well always seem to offer a challenge at World Cups. You don't necessarily know who they have in their team, but they go to a World Cup and they seem to play quite well. And of course, 2014 is their crown and glory, making the quarterfinals of that tournament, which is some accomplishment for a nation like Costa Rica. But I agree, it will be Spain and it should be Spain and Germany getting out of this group. The only really interesting thing I think is who's going to finish top.
I think
Germany.
You know what?
Yeah, go on.
Marco Reus misses another World Cup.
Yeah, but Marco Reus is not very relevant at the moment.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
That's tragic
but
for
like
him.
he's missed the last 3 World Cups, and he's been in form like with Dortmund from like 2009, 2010. Like so, he's missed 2010. He missed 2014. He missed 2018, and now he's missed this one as well, all through injury. I don't know about the 2010 one too much, but I'm pretty sure he was.
Yeah, I think he was still at Mönchengladbach, but he was. I don't know if he was a good player yet, but yeah, it was around that time.
But regardless,
2014,
and I think he's only been.
Was a good player for that.
I think he's only been to like 1 Euros with Germany as well.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So like he's missed all these international tournaments, and he should have went to the 2014 World Cup. Like so, he would have had a World Cup medal to his name, and like that means he would. Yeah, but he didn't win a Champions League, but he would have pretty much won everything there is to win almost.
Yeah, that's.
But
a great one for him personally.
Yeah, you feel sorry for the guy a little bit because like he seems like a good person as well. Like doesn't like he like you know how you get those players that you absolutely hate.
Yeah.
But he doesn't seem like that type of guy. But anyway, I digress. Spain and Germany. You know what they both lack? A finisher.
Strikers. Yeah. You know what Germany lack even more than that? Fullbacks. My God, they're terrible at like centre back. You can get away with it. They got Neuer to clean up messes, and then they've got Rudiger, and probably I hope it's Sörler next to him. I think even though he's been playing right back, he might play right back for this one. But Germany do not have fullbacks at all. I don't like Raum at left back. I don't like it when they use Hoffman at right back. That's terrible. It's a problem because fullback, I think for me, is an easy position to pinpoint and expose, particularly if you have a good winger, which Spain will have a jack in the box, and I'll be interested to see if he starts in Nico Williams from Bilbao, who has been fantastic this season and offers something different. I'm a bit disappointed that the form of Jeremy Pino at Villarreal has waned, because I know he's still only 20 or 19 or whatever he is, but he was one I was really excited for after the Euros, and he's sort of not gone on with it. But Nico Williams is definitely filling that void, and he'll be exciting for Spain. But back to Germany, no finisher, like you say. The fullbacks worry me, but that midfield is maybe the strongest midfield going to the World Cup. And it might be sacrilegious to do it at this point. I don't think he will do it just because Kimmich's so good in midfield now. But the fact that you have Gundogan, Goretzka, and Musiala who can all play in that midfield does Flick maybe get tempted with the deficiencies at fullback to maybe push Kimmich back to right back. I don't think he will, like I said. But it's just an interesting one to maybe look out for, because even if you slot Gundogan in for Kimmich, I know that Gundogan's probably not as good a defensive midfielder as Kimmich, but he gives you very good control of the play, obviously. He gives it doesn't really weaken the midfield for Germany. Like, it weakens it a tiny bit, but not significantly. And then you get significantly stronger in another area. So that's my thinking on that. I don't know if I would do it personally either, even though I love Kimmich at right back. But yeah, in terms of that midfield, that, like I say, is maybe the strongest one going there. And I don't worry about Germany in terms of the finisher, just because I think they still have goals in the side, in Thomas Muller, in Leroy Sané, in Serge Gnabry. I still think they have goals, and my main question is Jamal Musiala ready to play to a very good level at this stage? Because this is a massive stage for a 19-year-old when I think we've seen that Thomas Muller's form, he's not the Thomas Muller of old, although he's still a very, very good player. Leroy Sané and Serge Gnabry are in very good form. Bayern Munich are in very good form, which is great for this Germany side. So I know they're not a dark horse, but in terms of the top contenders, I probably don't put them there. But talking it out, I think they've got a very good chance of going deep in this World Cup. And yeah, I don't know if you have anything on Germany before we move on to Spain briefly.
Not really, but like what you said, like their midfield just seems really strong. And like I guess that spine is pretty strong as well. But yeah, for me, I just feel like they're. But like, when's the last time they really had a finisher like that?
Yeah, it's probably your Miroslav Klose, and even then, he was never that top echelon.
Yeah,
of strikers. I know he had the World Cup record, but
doesn't Muller have the record now, or is Muller like a goal or two away from it? Because I think he scored like 10 in his first two.
He does score a lot at the World Cup. Yeah. So that's one to watch for.
I think he's close. But like, yeah, going on to Spain though, like, what do you think of them?
Spain's a really hard one for me to predict because I think it's not. Luis Enrique is not unstable. He picks the same teams, but I always think he picks the wrong teams. There's no doubt in my mind that Sergio Busquets is going to be a big part of this team. That might be okay if we do get our traditional tournament football, which is a bit slower and a bit cagier. That might be fine. But if some teams do dare to be a bit more energetic and adventurous against them, I think they can somewhat overrun that midfield if it is a Busquets, Pedri, and Gavi midfield.
Gavi,
yeah. I guess it will be Gavi. He might go Koke, who's not that much a better option if you want legs because of his age. But I think it's a crime to be starting with Sergio Busquets when you have Rodri as an option. I think it's an absolute travesty, to be quite honest, because Rodri is maybe one of the best in the world and offers that physicality that if a team did want to play that way against your midfield, then he could stand up to that test. I think no worries. But yeah, I'm really excited for Nico Williams. The fullbacks are very solid, and you have good options there when you look at Dani Carvajal, Azpilicueta, lots of experience there. When you look on the other side, Jordi Alba, who's finally started playing for Barca a bit more, and Jose Gaya from Valencia. Be interesting to see who they go for as the centre-backs. You'd probably expect Aymeric Laporte to start, but I think that'd be maybe doing a disservice to Pau Torres, who was a good centre-back, and heaven forbid that he goes with Eric Garcia, but it's looking more and more that way after Sergio Ramos couldn't get into the squad, which for me, again, is absolutely ridiculous. I think you've got to take Sergio Ramos, but after I've been this critical of Luis Enrique, watch Spain go on and win this World Cup.
Laporte isn't... Oh, he played left-back in their friendly. Weird.
Yeah, that's an interesting one in itself.
Yeah, so he played Laporte, Torres, Garcia, Carvajal.
But I definitely think they've got enough to win this World Cup. But they also have deficiencies that might see them go out in a round of 16 or quarterfinals. But I expect them in Germany to get out of this group.
Yeah, I'm not too hot of them. Like they're obviously not the Spain of old, and especially if Rodri isn't playing in that midfield. Like I don't know. It depends on who he goes in that midfield. Because Rodri, Pedri, and Gavi that sounds like a pretty strong midfield to me. It's sort of
definitely.
Like it sort of reminds me of a younger like Busquets, Xavi, and Iniesta sort of trio or potential to be that trio.
Come on, let's not be sacrilegious. But Pedri has the potential to be on that level.
Yeah. It's just
Gavi has different qualities and Rodri has different qualities, but I think maybe all in all the quality maybe.
Look, it's just the front that I'm not like. The three that started the last game, Fati, Asensio, and Sarabia. And then
that's no good.
I think
they need Nico Williams in that front three for me to believe. Because he's the one who's a bit of a metronome, he's a bit of a jack in the box. He's got that pace and he's got that trickery that can do things.
Yeah, but he did get chosen. I can see him. But yeah, and then they got Morata. I've never been hot on him as a striker. He just,
he's functional.
Yeah, he's okay.
He's almost Mandzukic like.
Yeah,
functional guy up there.
Yeah, he's very similar to him. But I don't know. Maybe they should get out of the group. It would be a travesty if they didn't.
Who wins it? That's the question.
Yeah,
Spain or Germany?
I think Germany are just more solid. They just seem like they have even stronger midfield than Spain, and I think their defense is a little bit better. And yeah, I think Germany should win that group, and then Spain second.
I'll zag on you and I'll go for Spain. Hopefully Nico Williams plays in that game and he destroys whatever hopeless German right back or left back that they put in the game.
It'll be an interesting one to watch.
I do not like the fullbacks for Germany, just to make that clear.
All right, we'll keep an eye out to see what the tactic is in that game. But moving on to, so you reckon you say Spain, Germany, I say Germany, Spain.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Group F. Belgium, Canada, Morocco, Croatia. We've sort of touched on Croatia, sort of.
Yeah. But if you've got more, then I'm happy to hear.
Look, not really. It's interesting. Without any bias, for me, it's Belgium. It's between Belgium and Croatia for first. Belgium and the couple of times that we have played each other, I think it's either finished as a draw or Belgium have just won by 1-0. It's never been a blowout. And this is also an aging Belgium as well. I think especially a lot of the defenders have moved on to lesser clubs as well. And they lost to Egypt yesterday in a friendly as well. So it's a friendly. There's not too much to take away from that, I suppose. But you don't want to be losing a friendly against what is an inferior team just before going into the World Cup. And if I look at the lineup, who started, Courtois, De Bast, and Alderweireld, Thiete? Is that how you...
I don't know. Yeah. I've never heard of
Castagne, Van Aken, Witsel, Ferreira. I don't know what the second name is. De Bruyne, Hazard, and Batshuayi.
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
No, all right. I'm gonna say I'm not gonna be bold with it. I'm not gonna say it with my chest because I expect Belgium and Croatia to get out of this group. But if one of Canada or Morocco, or even if both Canada and Morocco got out of this group, I would not be off my chair shocked, because Belgium, well documented with how we feel about them. They've missed their window for me. I know they still have a jewel in the crown in Kevin De Bruyne, but Romelu Lukaku hasn't played at all this season. That defense he
wasn't even in the squad. I don't know if they even got called up.
I thought he got called up, but either way, he's played 2 games this season, which is worrying in itself. That defense is veteran, to put it nicely, but to put it not nicely, has no legs and can barely. And even at their pomp, they Alderweireld and Vertonghen were good defenders in their pomp. But how can you expect them at this age to be anywhere near that level? And look, I would not be surprised if Belgium get knocked out of this group. Croatia, I'm a bit higher on. I think they're a genuine dark horse. But I think they maybe somewhat have the same problems as Belgium. They are aging as well. Brozovic hasn't played much football in recent months. Kovacic has been up and down. Modric, unflappable, as always. I do like the fullbacks, and I like Guardiola at the back, but that midfield's a little bit aging. If Kovacic and Brozovic can't hit the ground running and they can't control games through that, which is no doubt their best part of the team. I wouldn't be surprised if they got knocked out of the group. So, and Morocco do have a little bit of quality. They have really good fullbacks in. Hakimi's really good. Mazraoui, I'm not as high on as some, but at international standards, that's a good fullback. And obviously, Hakimi is one of the... Ziyech is one of the front players, is always a good creator. But again, he hasn't been playing much himself. Canada have a few good players, notably, of course, Alphonso Davies. Jonathan David up front, who I think last time I checked was leading the charts in Ligue 1 for goals. He's probably second or third behind Mbappe and Neymar now, but he's banging them in. So Canada can be a little bit of a threat as long as they're solid defensively. Morocco the same. So yeah, I expect Belgium and Croatia, and I'll pick Belgium and Croatia to get out of the group. But it's not going to be a huge shock to me if one or both might be a bit of a shock, but
Both would be
I
a
think they
shock.
have problems. Yeah, it would be, but if one of these, I would not be surprised at all, to be quite honest.
I
And
think
if it was Belgium, I would be less surprised.
I think Belgium have slightly more problems than Croatia. Croatia seem like
Yeah,
they're more of a cohesive and complete unit. And over the past since the World Cup, the last World Cup, we've been trying to reintegrate the next generation, and we've had 4 years to reintegrate that next generation. Because that's like besides the midfield, that's pretty much a completely and Perisic, that's a completely new squad almost, or starting 11. So I don't know who do you think first? Who do you think second?
Croatia first. For those reasons you mentioned, I think they're more stable than Belgium.
Yeah,
Or maybe that's Belgium's problem. They're too stable that they've gone stale now.
yeah, maybe.
The one the one shining light I'll say for Belgium is maybe if Trossard carries over club form into
Oh
this,
yeah,
he could
that's
maybe offer something a little different for them. But yeah, that's about it.
yeah.
And Kevin De Bruyne, of course. Sorry.
Look, I'm gonna go Croatia and then Belgium as well. A little bit of heart in that decision, but if we can play the same way that we've been playing in the Nations League games, then we should be very hard to score against. So yeah, and hopefully, like as we know, international football, especially these tournaments, it's more about your defense than what you offer up front. So maybe we'll see how that goes. Moving on, Group G, second last group to talk about: Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon.
Want me to take it away? I think most people's favourites in Brazil,
For the
no
whole thing,
doubt.
yeah.
That worries me because favourites don't normally win the World Cup. So that worries me
France won the last
for
one.
them. Were they favourites? Maybe they were.
I'd say they were. They were
Yeah,
my favourites.
they were my favourites as well, I must say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to touch on much else for Brazil. It's a Neymar legacy World Cup, and the good thing for them is he is coming into it in fabulous form. Maybe definitely the best form he's shown since his Barcelona days, for me. And then there's so many other good pieces around him. You just have to look at Vinicius Junior. Be interested to see who's starting up front. I hope it's Gabriel Jesus because he's been fantastic this season. Casemiro, still one of the best holding midfielders, and that defense for Brazil is maybe the best defense going to the World Cup. I'd probably elevate that from maybe to definitely the best defense. I know Alisson is a little off form this season, but he's still been pretty good. Thiago Silva's been unbelievable at his age, and to bring that experience to a tournament, if it does play out like World Cups we've seen in the past, that's fine for him because his aging leg shouldn't be a concern. They've barely even been a concern in the Premier League, which is meant to be the most physical league in the world. So yeah, he's been in great form. Marquinhos, we know all about. He's fantastic. Eder Militao looks like he might be relegated to a right back position, which is a fantastic option to have there. If it's not him, it's probably going to be Danilo, who has probably been Juve's best defender, and this is a Juve team who have the best defense in Serie A. He also has his teammate Bremer in that squad as well, who's a valid option. Left back is a bit more of a concern. I hope it's not Alex Telles starting there, but by the same token, Alexandro hasn't been great for maybe a couple of years now. Not from back when he was maybe one of the better left backs in Europe, when Juve were making Champions League finals in the mid 2010s. So that might be a concern area for them. But even then, I think that and the midfielder next to Casemiro, if Tite does his normal thing and puts Paqueta there, I'm not convinced on that. But if it's Guimaraes, there's no weakness there at all. So this is definitely the strongest starting 11 that we have at the World Cup. I don't I don't really think that can be questioned. It might be the strongest squad we have going, and I fully expect them to breeze through this group, even though this group contains good teams such as Serbia, Switzerland, and just looking at the Cameroon starting 11 for their last game, they've got a few good players as well. So there could be a bit of a battle between all three of them for second. I expect it to be Serbia and Switzerland battling, but Brazil, I can't question, and I think they'll get through top.
Yeah, there's no arguments from me there. Like, they just seem like they have some of the world's best in every, like, third of the pitch. So they have some of the best forwards, they have some of the best midfields, and they have some of the best defenders, the best
Can
goalkeepers.
I ask you a question on that? Do you think, is this a case of a team, and I talked about how favourites don't normally win the thing, is this a case of a team who has too many guys?
Maybe up front. But, like, I think the midfield should choose itself. The defence should choose itself, but the front three, if you're going with a 4-3-3, then, like, Neymar is obviously going to be there. Like, he's probably is he the second captain after Thiago Silva? Thiago Silva's the captain. I'm guessing Neymar's like...
I think so, yeah. Maybe Marquinhos might be in front of him, but yeah.
Yeah.
He's the second or
but
third.
Neymar's always going to be first or second on the team sheet. Then it just depends who's going to supplement him up front. I'm guessing Jesus is going to be the main striker in front of Neymar or alongside Neymar. And then, I don't know, do you go with Richarlison? Do you go with Vinny? Do you go with Martinelli?
You've got to go with Vinny.
I'd go with Vinny, yeah. And then, I don't know, it depends how that front three, like, integrates and plays with each other. But yeah, like, they pretty much have some of the world's best players in their positions. Like, maybe if you were to go like best number nines, best left wingers, best right wingers, like they'd be in the top 5 of each of those positions, like midfielders as well, defenders. Then like in terms of goalkeepers, they have the best and the second best goalkeeper in the world in Edison and Alisson. Depends who you put number 1 and number 2 between them, because a lot of people would rank them pretty much on par with each other. So that's interesting.
I actually think Germany have probably the number 1 and 2s. If you wanted to go the best goalkeepers at the tournament, in Neuer and ter Stegen. But yeah, Edison and Alisson are a great shout. I just quickly on the too many guy theories. I don't necessarily agree with it. I just want to throw it out there. The reason I don't agree with it is because even those other guys we're talking about, in particularly Martinelli, Richarlison's not on that level. He's a functional player anyway. Rodrigo, Vinny Jr., they're all very young players. Or not very young, but young. Or very young, however you want to say it. So for me, that doesn't mean it's going to be a too many guys thing, because they're not in their prime. And I think they all understand that the main guy, particularly in the offensive sense, is Neymar. So I don't think they'll be dueling. So they'll be dueling with each other to be named the main guy of this Brazil side. I think everyone understands it's Neymar in the front areas, and I think that could lead itself to, especially when you talk about the talent that they have everywhere. That's a good thing for them, that they all understand. They can understand their roles within the team and their standing within the team. So I think that could be a good thing for them. It's just whether Neymar can live up to that pressure and expectation, and if the club form is anything to go by. And obviously this is a very experienced player as well, who's won nearly everything except for this tournament. So there's no reason to not think that he can live up to this pressure.
Yeah, 100%.
Now the question is Serbia or Switzerland, or if you want to throw Cameroon. I don't think either of us really want to do that, although I think they will be a challenge to those teams. It might come down to who can get the better result against Cameroon out of Serbia and Switzerland, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't
know.
I'm interested to get who you pick.
Serbia's like they seem pretty stacked in the forward area, but it's their midfield and defense that are like, you know, they're not too. I'm not too familiar with those players. Switzerland, they went to was it the semis of the Euros? Or was it the quarters? I think quarters.
Yeah.
They beat France
I think it was the quarters.
They beat France in the 16.
Yeah, because it was Italy, Spain one semi, and it was England,
Yeah,
Denmark the other
and
semi.
I think they almost beat Spain if memory serves me correct. So and Switzerland have just been like solid for the last number of years. So
And they
like
got the best midfielder in the world in Granit Xhaka. So.
best inform midfielder. Um, I'd be look. My head says Switzerland for second, just because I think
Yeah,
the
me too.
team all round is more solid and they've been together for longer and they're just more well rehearsed. I suppose it was one way of putting it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. My heart wants to say Serbia because I think they'll be more fun to watch, particularly if they play Vajovic and Mitrovic as a front two. That's
Yeah,
old school. That's like two big guys up front. I love that. But yeah, I think Switzerland just have more quality in more areas. Jan Sommer is a terrific goalkeeper, really good, quite underrated. Manuel Akanji's been really good for Man City. Fabian Schär has been excellent for Newcastle this season. Granit Xhaka likewise, obviously. And then look, and this is what we're talking about. Those players are all in defensive areas, and our big sort of assertion from this pod is we think that this has every chance of being like other tournaments in the past where it's a bit cagier and a bit more defensive, and that bodes well for Switzerland having those good players in those key areas, and it's whether the likes of Shaqiri and Mbolo and players like that up front can take their moments. So yeah, I think my head tells me Switzerland, but I'm rooting for Serbia to get out of the group because I think they could be fun.
yeah. Like a couple of weeks ago, I'm like we both said Serbia could be a fun dark horse to get out. 'Cause did they top the group with Portugal to qualify? Because I think they got automatic qualification, didn't they?
Yeah, because Portugal had to go through all the playoffs and
Yeah.
stuff.
So like, they topped a group with Portugal in there. So it it wouldn't surprise me if they finished second. But
Nah, no way. Yeah.
yeah, like it's going to be an interesting battle then between those two teams. Um,
So who's your pick? Who's your five?
I still think Switzerland.
Yeah,
So
I'll
Brazil,
agree
Switzerland.
on that.
And that brings us to Group H, and we'll finish up with this one. We'll finish up the pod in a couple of minutes. We've already touched on Portugal, I guess, and I guess Ronaldo and his potential legacy. But I guess could this be a potential group of death? Because any one of these teams could get out. Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, South Korea.
I put Ghana as definitely the last team for
Like
me.
it's not a group of death where like you get your like three heavyweights like Spain, Germany, and Brazil or France or something. It's not that, but this is like where all four teams are sort of on par almost.
Yeah, well, I think Portugal are clearly the best team on paper.
On paper,
going
yeah.
into this, but however,
Uruguay are right there as well.
Uruguay are really good. They're probably my strongest dark horse out of the rest. I did see that Ronald Araujo made the squad. I don't know if he's going to be fit enough to play, but he did make the squad, so that suggests they think they might be able to get something out of him. Which, if they can, that will be huge because all of a sudden, instead of looking at playing with Diego Godin as the centre back, who is 42 or whatever he is now, he must be ancient. But then they're looking at a Jimenez and Araujo centre-back partnership, which goes very nicely with the Valverde-Bentancur partnership they have in midfield, which goes very nicely with a Darwin and take your pick of Cavani-Suarez partnership up front. So that spine is very strong for Uruguay, and that is why I had them as my dark horse pick. I expect them to get out of the group with Portugal, but Portugal with the too many guys theory, just behind Belgium, maybe, as the team who could capitulate at this stage, especially with the circus that surrounds Ronaldo, and not only the circus, the poor form that surrounds Ronaldo, and the fact that, look, with the too many guys theory, are all those other Portuguese players looking at Cristiano Ronaldo in the form he's in and saying, you're undoubtedly our leader, you're undoubtedly our best player in the offensive sense? Absolutely not, and they shouldn't. And the problem is, I don't think his personality lends him to be gracious enough to say, I'm not the best player in the front areas for this team, and I should take a little bit of a step back and let Rafael Leao and Bernardo Silva and all these types of players do their thing a little bit more. And I can still be a big part of the team, but I'm not going to be the main part. If Ronaldo is the number one guy and the main part for this team, I don't see it going well. If he can somehow take a little step back and let the other guys shine, I think they have more than enough quality to not only get out of the group, but to win the whole thing. Because around the whole park, they are just filled with quality for me. I mean,
Who's your striker then?
No, I'm not saying he should take a back seat and not play. I'm just saying in the games he should not be looking to be always the main guy, throwing his hands up, always want delivery, want service. He should just be a bit more patient and let these other guys, like, sort of, in particular, Rafael Leao, who is, just take a step back and understand for the team, it's better that I do this. But yeah, I think if that is the case, I'm looking at their squad now, and it's just
the squad seems really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Even a João Paulinho, who's been on fire at Fulham this season as a holding midfielder. William Carvalho, I've always liked it at Betis. Danilo's been really good for PSG. So yeah, I think they have more than enough quality to win it. And in terms of your striker, an alternative to Ronaldo is Gonzalo Ramos from Benfica, who's been pretty good this season as well. So, yeah, I think they have enough to win it, but at the same time, I think they have capitulation potential as well.
Where's Ronaldo? He didn't play against Nigeria the other day.
Yeah, I did just see that,
and he wasn't on the subs bench either. That's weird.
Probably too busy giving an interview or something. I don't know. But yeah,
that's really weird that he didn't play that friendly. You'd think, like, for someone that has been getting fuck all game time, that he's going to be getting at least 45 minutes in this. That's
you would think so.
That's really weird.
So yeah, but I mean.
So you reckon?
Look, so neither one shocks me, to be honest. Portugal going out of this group.
You mean Wolves?
It surprises me. It doesn't shock me. Portugal winning the whole damn thing maybe surprises me, but doesn't shock me because the quality in the squad is so good. South Korea obviously have maybe the best defender in the world at the moment in Kim Min-jae. Son. We'll see how he comes back. No doubt he'll probably be wearing some huge mask, and that will become a cult sort of thing over the World Cup. But look, that might be enough. If Portugal do capitulate, that you have a really good defender and a really good attacker, that might be enough to get you through, as long as the rest of the team work hard for those players. So, yeah, Ghana's just the one that I put adrift of the rest, to be quite honest. I don't think it's a Ghana team that we've seen in probably around that 2006, 2010 range. Obviously 2010, where they could have easily made a semi-final if it wasn't for Luis Suarez, who is maybe the most infamous player of all time. Luis Suarez, 3 biting incidents and a handball on the line in a World Cup quarterfinal.
But you got to admit, though, we would have done the exact same thing. Not the bite,
great move.
Not the biting. The handball.
Not the bite.
Not the bite.
Hey, we don't have the chompers that Luis Suarez has. No wonder he goes to biting as his first move. But yeah, the handball was a great move. It was the right move. It was a travesty for the purity of football, but it was the right move for getting your team through. And trust the Uruguayan to do that, to be fair. So yeah, it's my pick for this group will be Portugal win the group, Uruguay finish second. But Uruguay could easily win this group as well. Even if Portugal get out as second, Uruguay could win this group. But a lot depends on Ronaldo Araujo for me.
Yeah, this is it's a tough one to predict 1 and 2, because Portugal finishing second wouldn't surprise me. But you would expect them to finish first, just because all around the park their team seems pretty stacked. But yeah, I'll go Portugal, Uruguay as 1 and 2 in that order.
I think we pretty much did all the same for the groups, which to me suggests that we don't really have
We expect no surprises
this World Cup. Yeah, and we don't have a group of death really in this World Cup like we've been used to seeing in other World Cups, which could be good for the later stages because if it does work out the way we've predicted and all those strong teams go through, we'll have some very tasty knockout stage football to be watching.
We might have got a group of death had Italy have qualified.
Yeah, definitely. But alas, they are not here.
Yeah, because
the European champions will not be competing at the World Cup.
Yeah, because had Portugal finished first in their group, but then Italy was in the same group as Switzerland, so like Switzerland probably would have been in Group G, taking either Serbia or Switzerland's spot.
Yeah, but remember when we got to the playoffs, we had the problem of either Portugal or Italy would have been out either way.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if Italy didn't lose to North Macedonia. So,
but you know what? I'm not sure whether, and because they are 2 European teams, and they both finished first in their group. So like, had Portugal finished first, they would have taken Serbia's spot, and had Italy have finished first, they would have taken Switzerland's spot. So Group G would have been a group of death with Brazil, Portugal, and Italy and Cameroon.
Could you imagine that group?
So that
poor Cameroon.
It's like I don't know how to make. You know that meme with that blonde girl on the couch. I think on that note we'll wrap up the pod. Unless you got anything else to add.
No, I'm happy where we are after 2.5 hours.
Yeah, 2.5 hours,
give or take. Korea interrupted.
Korea or Korea?
Courier.
Jim Courier.
Jim.
All right. Well, Caleb, it's been a pleasure. We'll look forward to the opening games. We'll I don't know when we'll do our next World Cup. Maybe our next World Cup in 4 years' time. Our next pod. I don't know. Maybe
early next week. I think we'll stick to a normal schedule and we'll just talk about what we've been seeing.
Yeah, maybe like the first couple of games. Maybe on Tuesday. So at least there's Sunday games, Monday games, and Tuesday games. So Wednesday for you.
Yeah, I can guarantee we won't be doing one straight after Qatar versus Ecuador.
Yeah,
that I can almost guarantee.
Yeah, no. All right, man. Look, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure hearing your lovely voice through that microphone of yours. And I hope our audience has enjoyed your lovely voice as well. And to all those listening, subscribe, like, comment, share, all that good stuff. And thanks for coming, and bye for now.